with the Audit Committee meeting, Pamela Dowd, Lisa Glidden, and Sean Onneck. And I'll turn it over to Nancy Squires.
Hi, tonight we have Jimmy Chelfie from Bonadillo and Company, our internal auditor firm that is going to present the risk assessment. From the risk assessment, it is the audit committee's purview to say which section they want tested, if any that are recommended, or anything else that the audit committee may see as an important area.
All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. So if you could start off on page 4 of the report. This year, if you've looked at the report in the past, it looks a lot different than it has. We kind of restructured the way we do it. And I think it's a lot more clear of like each area, and we've given it an individual risk score for each area. So there's kind of 3 buckets of where the scores come in. So each area would either be low, moderate, or high. A score of 1 to 11 would indicate that it's a low risk area. 12 to 20 would be moderate, and 21 to 27 is high. There are no areas that we identified to be high risk areas for the district, but and all the areas do fall in the moderate risk areas. And the 2 highest areas we have are the payroll and human resources with a score of 17, and the school lunch fund with a score of 15. Any questions on how that kind of works? Okay. So to look at the payroll area, it is on page 10. And I'll kind of go through how we came up with that score of a 17 for that area. So there are 9 different areas of consideration that we give a score of either a 1, 2, or 3, indicating it's low, medium, or high for each of those individual areas of consideration. The first 2 are external audit and past audit considerations, which we have a score of 1 for, because there was really nothing noted there based on our interviews and walkthroughs. Same with financial reporting, nothing to note there, so it's just a score of 1, indicating that it's low. For the area of governance and management, we gave it a risk score of 2, due to the fact that the district does not have a set policy in place for updating internal district policies on a regular basis, and this you'll see is in basically every cycle area because it basically affects everything. So it just increased that to a 2. For design and effectiveness of control environment, we gave that a high score of 3 due to the fact that we noted there's a lack of written procedures and a formal processing timeline for each pay period. And then there's no individual that has been cross-trained in processing payroll. For IT, it's a score of 2 due to the fact that the district does not have a completed disaster recovery plan in place. However, there are backups performed and software does appear to be regularly updated, so it's just a score of 2. Materiality and complexity of this area, payroll is like the highest expenditure of the district, so it is a material area, so that gives it a score of 2. Fraud risk is 1. We didn't identify any fraud risks in this area. Environmental risks, we scored 2 due to the fact that we noted there was a retro payroll run being processed for the CSE bargaining unit. And those retro payroll runs are just prone to error, so it kind of increases the risk there. And then we did have some other observations, which we increased the risk for in the last area, and I can go through some of our recommendations for those. So on the bottom, under our recommendations, we noted that there is not an established process for reconciling health insurance invoices to the payroll deductions. We recommend that the district develop a process allowing for the reconciliations to be performed on a monthly basis. On the next page, and I discussed this, the payroll clerk is the only person who is trained to process payroll at the district. Additionally, there's a lack of written procedures and formal processing timeline. So we just recommend cross-training occur, and a formal set of written policies and a formal processing timeline should be created and distributed to the employees responsible in that department. And lastly, the CSEA bargaining unit receiving that retro pay adjustment for the current year settlement. Retro pays may require complex calculations and can be prone to errors. We recommend payroll personnel ensure that retro pay calculations are reviewed in detail to allow for accuracy in the processing of such payments. Any questions on that payroll area? Okay. The second highest area that I want to go over was the school lunch fund, which is on page 17 of the report. So the areas to mention here, under governance and management, we gave a score of 2. Similarly, it has the district policies not being updated on a regular basis, and we also noted additional monitoring of departmental operations may be required in this area due to recent operational losses within the school lunch fund. For internal controls area, we scored a 2. The food service department uses Excel for tracking inventory, and we recommend obtaining inventory software. Additionally, inventory is only taken once a year, and we recommend inventory be taken on more ongoing basis throughout the year. Furthermore, under environmental risks, there are environmental pressures existing around the universal free lunch federal mandate due to the pandemic, which gave that an increased risk score. And then we noted that the district had a net loss for the year ended June 30th, 2021 in this fund. And due to the fact that the general fund is ultimately responsible for covering any deficits in this fund, it gives an increased risk for this area. So those are the 2 highest areas. I can go over any of the other areas if you want me to, but those are the areas that we're suggesting individual testing for this year. So if you have any questions on any of the other areas, I can definitely go over those.
Well, I guess I don't really have questions for you, the auditor, but I do have questions about like the way that we'll deal with this and some of this, but that's a different discussion, yeah? We'll let him go through the. Sure. Okay. Well, I mean, I know we just hired the business officer, and I believe that person was going to be cross-trained in payroll and like double check, or is that?
Yes, we just hired a new person, an assistant business administrator, and he will help with a number of things, so with oversight, and part of that would be the payroll piece. So that's a new person who just came in, but yes, that's some extra hands there to help out with it. But you wanted to add too?
But Lisa, what happens is that Kelly does all of the payroll from start to finish. We do have someone that can fill in when Kelly is not there. That is my other senior account clerk who can do the payroll. But as Jimmy said, we have not documented any of that, and that creates a risk of that lost knowledge going when anyone retires. So I agree. I can't disagree with anything that has been said in the risk assessment in terms of payroll. Mm-hmm. And in terms of the control, CSEA, we have, just to let you know that Bonadeo did do their original risk assessment and testing prior to the CSEA rollout of their retro. So all of that was double and triple checked. So yes, it's in the report, but it was done prior to them, prior to us actually doing the retro for that.
Okay. And then for the food service, is it in a net loss because we still haven't gotten in some of those revenues?
Yes.
That is
this
correct.
is back, 2 years ago, if I remember correctly? It
No.
says 2021.
2020,
The net loss was 2021.
Yeah.
or 2021.
So it's like almost 2 years ago, basically. Yeah. Yes, and some of that was the reimbursement. If you want to say something,
So
go ahead.
what that was a timing error on when the money was filed for claim and when we actually got it. We actually got it after the external audit was closed out.
Okay, I thought that I remembered
So we couldn't accrue
that.
that back to that fiscal year.
Got it.
If we had done that, I think we would have either seen a small loss or even a small gain. Over the last 4 out of the 5 years, it has been showing an increase in profit over the years. It was just a mistake in timing.
Yeah, okay. Well, and I guess the last thing I would just say, I'm sorry, Jimmy. The last thing I would say, as someone who sits on the policy committee, is maybe we just need a policy that, like, every year we'll go through a fifth or whatever, how, we have a lot of policies, but
To review,
that
yeah.
we'll start just going through on a regular basis.
Totally agree. That'd be good.
Absolutely, yeah.
I like the idea of a policy for our policies, Karen.
Exactly.
Agreement.
That's right.
Well, it just gives us a nice time frame to work with, and remember, will we be working on written procedure for payroll?
As we can, I have the new assistant director going through, sitting down with people, walking through their process, documenting their process so we can get it down in writing. It's a long process to do. And then you also want a third party walking through what is written down to make sure that is what we're doing. But yes,
Thank you. Yeah, I've had to, like, do that with 2 different departments, and it's not anything that you can get done in a week. We wish, but it isn't. Can we also talk about, because there was one other that had a 15.
Sure.
The expenditures, expenses, payables, and disbursements. So can you explain that to us?
Yeah. Yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
That one that gets a 2 there, design and effectiveness control, is inventory taken only once at the beginning of the school year?
I think it's at the
at
end.
the end of the
So
school
only
year.
one time throughout the whole year is there inventory taken?
Yeah, that's
All
my
right, so
understanding.
that would drop that 2 to a 1 with proper software, and that category wouldn't, I mean, it would drop that to a 14 total. It wouldn't even be in the top 2 of this. I mean, the money
Right.
saved from proper inventory in that is a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's not like we had any shrinkage in our inventory for food service. The main issue is that we had a software in place, and it was designed by a former employee. When that former employee left, the knowledge of how that system was, the language was created in the program left with it. And we have been in the process of looking at inventory softwares, not only for food service, but also for our warehouse. But it's either too robust where it's too much software and too much cost for what we need it to do, or it's really doesn't, it's more for manufacturing and it does not work for our environment. I've reached out to other school districts. We've looked at inventory software. We just can't seem to find anything to fit a school district and the way we want it to work. We keep looking, but we haven't found anything perfect yet. So they do inventory at the end of the year, physical count. If we had an inventory software, we were doing cycle counts, and we were doing blind counts, but we haven't been able to do that without the proper software.
So expenditures, that is page 9, you said? Okay, so the external audit and past audit considerations, we had a score of 2 due to the fact that the external auditors had material journal entries provided to the district to record. Same for governance and management with the policy, updating internal policies. Design and effectiveness of internal controls. We wrote that, again, that the district does not have written procedures for this area, including the process of cash disbursements. And then we do have individual recommendations below that kind of point towards the higher score as well. So we had a recommendation that the district monitor expenditures at year end in order to properly accrue expenditures correctly at the end of the year. We recommend that a set of written procedures for all employee positions is created and distributed to appropriate personnel. The treasurer's procedure should also specifically include the procedures to be followed for cash disbursements. And those are the two recommendations there. Any questions on that?
So it's been a long time since I worked in accounting, but I feel like it was normal for the auditors to come in and tell us what we had to accrue. Is that, or how would we keep track of that? Like, I'm sure we know kind of what may be coming, but isn't,
There are a lot of journal entries that they normally do at year end. I think one of the ones is the flex journal entries that, I don't know if that's what you're referring to, Jimmy, but we have a process in place now where all of the flex benefits are reconciled on a monthly basis, so that at the end of the year, if people do not use their flex benefits, we'll know how much is going to be journal entry back into the district as miscellaneous revenue. I think that's one of them.
Yeah, I believe it was.
I think that's the main one that they're looking for, and we already have a process in place currently.
okay. Well, and then this one also, the disaster recovery plan was the same one that gave us a 2 in one of the other categories.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah, I mean, like, our backups, the backups are performed, and then they're just like, so, because with the disaster recovery plan, it's that, like, you're sending it to a server someplace else, right? Is that
Yeah,
the-
it's basically like a written recovery plan that we were looking for. So I think with my discussions with Jamie Sykett, that he was 3/4 of the way done with it. It's just not formalized and completed yet at this point. So that's why
Okay.
we have that risk there.
And what they're also looking for is to go through, if something were to happen to the district, how would we keep our business going? How would we continue to run payroll? What would we do? What procedures do we have in place? Do we have to go to the RIC in order to process checks? And what would that look like? How would we do it? So it's those kind of things that, once the disaster recovery plan is in place, then you actually try to do a drill to say, hey, if this happened, what would you do and would it work?
Right, yeah, I
that's the
mean,
other
given,
piece.
you know, cybersecurity and the likelihood of being, you know, having your data kidnapped, it's, yeah.
So we're in the process of that. So Jamie's working on that. Wonderful, that's good to hear. And are we working on putting in writing the procedures for cash disbursement?
So we started with cash receipts first, and we have some of that documented. And then as time permits, we're going to work on the other areas as well.
Okay, is there any other specific areas you want me to discuss? Or I can go over like our suggested areas. On page number 5, it gives a history of the past 3 years of what we've tested. So last year, we did do testing over payroll in relation to hourly employees and terminated employees. We did testing and recalculation of some of those. In 2019-20, we did testing over extra classroom activity funds, and in the year before that, we did expenditures and expenses area. So this year, based on them being the two highest areas, we are recommending payroll or the school lunch fund. On page 6, it goes over our recommended plan for testing the school lunch fund. So obviously, given the increased risk score, universal free breakfast at lunch, and then the other identified risks in that area caused by the pandemic and operations showing a deficit is the reason we're requesting this. So basically, our audit strategy would be kind of to perform a 7-year look back of the school lunch fund, including identifying trends within the fund, transfers made to and from the fund, a look at revenues and expenditures, and performing budget to actual. Basically, gaining an understanding of the key controls surrounding preparation of the budget, see if there's any efficiencies that could be added there. Taking a look at the operations from 2020 through present, especially focusing on what happened during the pandemic to see if we could recommend any efficiencies that the district could have added for distributing meals, where staff were working, claiming federal funds, and inventory management. We will perform a historical analysis of breakfast and lunch prices that the district charges and compare them to industry averages, and have interviews with food service staff, including the director, to understand and document the operations of the food service department.
Well, why don't you go over the next one too, and then you can tell the audit committee how you usually do it in terms of a bank of hours and how many hours you might, each section might take.
Yeah, sure. So the other area we suggested, and this is just like a suggestion for what we could do looking at payroll, conduct an observation for the process of payroll and document the key controls, and looking at the CSEA retro payroll run and doing recalculations of that and making sure like that it's complete and accurate. And these are just our 2 recommendations as well for areas. If there's any other areas that you think you would like to do specific testing over, we're open for that too. Like this doesn't have to be the final 2 recommendations, basically.
The number of hours this would take?
It would differ per area. School lunch fund, I would probably think close to 32 to 40 hours for the testing on that.
So board, you know, certainly it's up to all what the final say. I would certainly recommend that we look at the payroll. Given our recent comptroller audit, my just feeling is we should do that. I would be open to the food service piece as well too.
Okay.
I personally don't, there's no other area that's jumping out to me right now. I would totally love those 2 areas.
Okay, and since you know, the payroll would be kind of shorter, we could definitely do both, and maybe just drop that 7-year look back maybe to a 5 to kind of even out the hours for doing both.
I'd be all right with 5. Would you be all right with 5? Lisa?
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And you start pretty quickly, I think before the end of the week's out, right?
Thursday.
Yeah, so
okay.
Thursday, yep.
All right. There we go. You got
So
an
yeah, we'll
area.
get this rolling. I can send, I told Nancy I would send her out the requests that we'll need for our testing basically tonight, so she can have tomorrow to start pulling the stuff, and then we'll be hitting the road on Thursday to get the testing started.
All right. We look forward to you coming back and giving us your report, your outcomes, seeing where
All
we're at and going from there.
Great.
Pretty good.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So at this time, the audit committee will end, and we'll wait till 5 o'clock for the regular meeting.
Great. Pretty good. Okay.
At this time, if I could call tonight's meeting to order, Tom Chapa,
Here?
Heather Del Conte. Here. Pamela Dowd,
Here.
Lisa Glidden,
Here,
James McKenzie,
Here?
Sean Amek, Linda Sereno, and Zachary Demont. At this time, if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda is floor to the public. We have one person that signed up, Shunlan Braun. If you would come to the mic. Right up here. And state your name and address, please.
My name is Chunlan Brown. My address is 20 O'Brien Glenway, Oswego. I can start now?
Yep.
Okay. Dear school board members, what a beautiful day we have today. Very glad to see you in person today. My name is Chunlan Brown. I have 2 boys in this school district. We moved to Oswego last fall, and we are still trying to get familiar with this new environment. Here, I'd like to share something important and concerning for me as a parent. It's about mental health. As you all have probably heard of the news from about 10 days ago, a 15-year-old boy, Jay Lu, from the Fayetteville Manlius High School, committed suicide in a horrible way due to depression. Jay's death hit us deeply because we are friends with his family. Jay was a very brilliant boy with a beautiful soul. Last Tuesday night, FM school had a gathering to honor Jay at their school board at the football field. And about 1,000 people came, and over 50 students spoke up with lots of sorrows and tears. No matter what we do, we cannot bring Jay back to life. But his death is a big waking-up call to all school educators and parents. Our children's emotional, spiritual, and physical health are all equally important. This pandemic, with its lockdown and masking, could have affected the children and youth emotionally. The data shows that children and teenager depression and suicide rates increased nationwide during the lockdown. In a recent Oswego Board of Education meeting, there was a debate about establishing a metric that could be used to bring back the mask mandate if necessary. For the purpose of protecting a largely vaccinated general local population, I wonder what a metric measuring emotional health of the children could be used to not bring back the mask mandate or other restriction to protect that emotional health of our children and youth. There is no vaccine to protect their emotional health. We also should promote kindness in our school communities. It takes a village to raise a child. There is too many negative things happening in this world. Children need our attention and care more than ever. I hope Jay's family's loss is the last one in this area. And Jay's death brings more attention to mental health issue. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the Board of Education, items A through F. If I could have a motion.
I'll move it.
Thank you. Second?
Compelled by a deep sense of urgency to do more.
Don't know what that is.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the Superintendent's report with Dr. Kelvin.
Good evening, Board. Great to see everybody back this evening. We have a bunch of items we'd like to kind of go through with everybody tonight. And so we'll just kind of go ahead and get going then. Just move some things out of the way here for me. Okay. So I'd like to start this evening, as we do for each of our meetings. Let me see. Why is this not moving for me here? Be nice to me. Oh. Also, I don't know, Matt. Doesn't want to. It doesn't like me. One moment. Sorry about that. Oh, okay, got it. Doesn't like me. Try it again. All right. So this evening, I'd like to start by just highlighting some of our students. We've got, one of the things I can say is when we look around the district, we have so many wonderful things going on with kids. Kids are really just doing some wonderful things. Our teachers, our staff, they're doing everything they can to make sure that there's a strong connection with our students and building relationships with them. And just, when you take a look around, there's just a lot of great things happening in the district. So a couple of things I want to just highlight. We had 6 teams from the middle school, 7th and 8th grade, who participated in this year's Battle of the Books competition. The first place team was the Rainy Day Book Club, is what they call themselves. 3 students there, Katrina, Alina, and Jillian. And this team recently represented the middle school at the Onondaga/Oswego County Regional Battle. And we just wanted to congratulate those children for their hard work, for their commitment to literacy and reading, and just really teaming around literacy. Can we just give them a round of applause? Great job to all those kids at the middle school.
Can I just add, Mathis? I'm not sure if everybody in the public knows the Battle of the Books, what that actually is in teams of 3, sometimes 4, students are given a list of books. It's usually 10 books, titles that they have to go out and they read them. They come back together in the competition, and they have no idea what the question might be. And it starts out in what book? And then it goes on for the question. And these students, from memory, from reading these books, answer these questions. And the most correct answers wins the competition. So it is a long process that these kids have dedicated themselves to, the reading and the remembering, and then getting up on stage in the competition. So yes, it's a very big round of applause for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. We had the pleasure of, when I say we, several of the district administrators had the opportunity to go and be either, I was the one who was given the questions, some others were judges, some of us were timekeepers, and we did it with the elementary students not too long ago, and it was fantastic. I mean, the kids and the parents, and the staff who really, especially our library media staff, fantastic job well done. Just wanted to say congrats to the kids for sure. Also at the FPS school at Fitchie Park, students recently presented Annie Kids. This was their musical for the year. It featured the classic story of the orphan finding her parents and her place in the world. Job well done as well. We have the middle school who is now almost set for their musical, and just all around, the kids are just, I have to say, they're just energetic, they're all in, they're doing their piece, and I'm just really happy to see them up singing, doing whatever, dancing, moving around, and yet trying to do it very safely as we kind of move through the pandemic. So just job well done, and I just wanted to say great job to the kids, quickly. So I think, Craig, are you on with us now? If you can come on to the screen there, Craig. There we go, okay. So Craig is joining us here tonight remotely. I know he has another meeting with another district here shortly. But I just wanted to just go back over a couple of things here. Not too long ago, we shared with the board and with the facilities committee the EPC project information, if you'll recall. That's the energy performance contract project that was there. And we had the Siemens Group come in and share as a part of our study some of the savings that we might be able to realize. Over an 18-year cumulative period, there was a net benefit of $3.8 million, and then there were some additional savings there, depending on whether or not we would move forward with the program. In addition to, in an effort rather to align this process with Phase 3B, we're reviewing tonight the timeline with the board as well as next steps. So I'm not sure if the board is interested or not in doing the EPC project, but we thought we'd come back because we're now trying to come up with Phase 3B of the project that really looks at the middle school. And if there is some work you kind of want to do around an energy performance contract. We just wanted to see where you were at, because there's a process that needs to go along with it. You don't have to make any decisions tonight, but we just thought we'd come and share with you information, okay? And I can't get this to move for me, Matt. Okay, we'll do that. So Craig's on with us, and I wanted him just to come on and share a little bit about planning timelines and what might be involved in the process. Okay, so Craig, go right ahead. We do.
For basically the kind of the hinge point for us as your architect is the melding of the Phase 3B work and with the potential work of an energy performance contract. The EPC is going to basically touch every building in the district. The contractor will go through and evaluate the energy performance of each building, see what systems need to be replaced or upgraded. Lighting is a typical one you see where wherever you have fluorescent lights now would be switched over to LED. Those are huge money savers. The utilities usually offer rebates, so the ESCO or the contractor actually goes after those on behalf of the district and includes an estimate of those. So for us to kind of parallel those projects, we would like to do send out an RFP this month. And what that allows us to do is we will send that to multiple energy service contractors. Those are the guys that will provide the EPC. They will provide back response. We'll evaluate it with the board and go through pros and cons and just kind of make a selection of the company you're interested in. There's no commitment up to that date. Once they're brought on board, what they will do is they will perform a detailed energy audit, and that will be broken out in their proposal as a separate number. Why we ask for that is if they go out and they do their energy audit, and it's very, it's extensive, because they have to prove that the energy savings are actually going to happen. Otherwise, they have to cut a check to the district anytime it doesn't. And just say for whatever reason, the district says that, you know what, it's not the right time for an EPC. They are entitled to at least being paid for that energy audit, which then becomes the property of the district, and you can use it for whatever purposes. You can do it in the long-range planning, or you can do it in-house, or those types of things. But there's usually a fee assigned for that, and everybody walks away. If you're satisfied with the detailed energy audit, it then moves into project design. You'll actually get a contract with the ESCO to do the project. We'll do an SED submission based on an approval of 10 to 12 weeks, which is what it looks like. We've got to time that with Phase 3B middle school work. There's no bid required for an ESCO. It's basically kind of a turnkey. They hire all the subs, order all the materials, and are kind of the management of that. And then construction would start in June 23, similar to what we're talking about for the middle school. And then that work would run parallel, but keep in mind it's running parallel through multiple buildings in the district to some degree. But the ideal is to try to, I guess, save the energy performance work, that potential that's in the middle school, put it in an EPC, but have it done at the same time, if that makes sense. Okay. Any questions on that?
Questions for the board? Questions, anybody? So I guess the question is, in terms of your interest, do you have interest at least in doing the RFP process? Again, there's no commitment that the district would have, but at least you kind of get some ideas of who's out there and what they might be able to do and whether or not this may be something you want to move forward with. So thoughts from the board?
It makes perfect sense to go and get the numbers and the figures, because if we're doing work in the buildings,
Right. Try to
you don't want to finish the work and then have to come back in and rip it up to do.
whatever else, yeah. Okay. Anybody else?
The only thing I would add is just, how we're going to pay for it, whether it's existing funds whether it's something, we ask for a resolution, it may be a little late for that, but, if we wanted, we have more than $5 million in our capital fund right now. Finding a way that we're not maybe paying a whole bunch of interest on it. And so some of these things, because the estimated cost is based on us paying this over 18 years. We would recoup a lot more costs if we could front some to all of that money now, I believe.
And I think there were also, Craig, go ahead.
Actually, you're not paying for it over 18 years. The company is committing to 18 years. You will get reimbursed by the state with your state aid over the typical 15-year period of like a capital project. It's basically treated similar to that. But the ESCO has to guarantee that you will continue to get those savings another 3 years after you've received aid.
Okay, so we'd be paying 15 years at an estimated 3.5% interest.
Not knowing exactly how they include the interest in their contract, they are not bound by the current interest rates because it depends on if their company is funding it, which some of the companies are large enough, like Train, Siemens, Johnson Controls. They basically kind of control the financing of it. But if it's a borrowing thing, I would have to run that through the ESCO and see how they calculate that. And I think we work with your fiscal advisors on that as well.
Okay, yeah, I only asked because it's in the handout that we have in our packet, so it's an estimated, so it just a thought, because I know we're going to talk about this again, but just wanted to bring that up.
Yes.
And I think there were also some grants, if I remember correctly, too, that we can apply for to help to pay for some of this EPC work. I think Mr. John from Siemens, I think, mentioned there may be some grants when he gave his presentation as well that will help us to pay for some of this. Okay? So I think at this point, the question is, at least do you want to explore, right? Do you want at least, there's no commitment to doing it, but there's at least the exploration process. So if we do want to do it, you can say yay or nay, right? Would you be all right with that? Okay. All right. Okay, Craig, I think we're all set.
Great.
All right.
All right,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much. We'll move ahead.
All right, have a good time
Good
at your
night.
next meeting. All right. Boy, this really does not want to like me. Let me see here. Come on. All right. All right, just shifting to another issue. Oh, we could have had Craig stay on, but that's okay. We'll keep moving. So just want to let you know that we have a security concern board also that we've been working through. We have at the stadium some blind spots, in terms of being able to see kids and folks around the stadium. And we've recently had some issues there at the beginning of the year, and we're just trying to keep some eyes out there when we are not physically in that area, basically. So over, tell me, I want to make sure I got the right area. Over behind the stand, the concession stand, there's an area over behind there that it's very difficult to be able to see who's over, who's around, who's doing what. And so what we've done is the facilities group has talked about how we've gone out and just looked to see what something would cost to get some cameras out there. We're trying to just get some security cameras in the area. So we got some estimates. Preliminary estimates have come in at around $60K to do it, which is extensive in terms of cost, right? But in terms of the health and safety, we just want to try to make sure that we are keeping folks safe. So we talked about it on the facilities committee, and there are two ways that, if we were to do this, that we could pay for this. So one way is you can kind of put it in your capital project, use some of your contingency dollars to kind of pay for this. And if you did that, so, you can get some reimbursement for it. It's about 85%, between 85 and 88%. There is another way that we can tap into as well. And you're going to hear me talk about this tonight quite a bit. So we have a fund, a pot of money that we just haven't touched. So probably about 8 years ago, school districts got what was called Smart Schools Bond Act money. And it's a bulk of money that basically the state of New York put out. And they said, hey, listen, we want to try to increase technology in schools. We want to, and this is the legislature, right? The state legislature. We want to try to increase technology in schools. We also want to provide, some updated spaces. And, in case people wanted to use it for anything else, you got technology spaces, and you can use it for security as well, right? And this was probably about 8 years ago. Each school district across the state got an allocation of money, right? And then what you had to do was basically put a plan together, put it into the state. And once your plan was approved, it's a pay-for reimbursement program. So you have to pay it up front from your own dollars, right? And then you get reimbursed in the next year, and it's 100% reimbursement, okay? So districts got different amounts based upon, their size, basically. Our district got $1.79, I think it is, million in that fund, and we haven't used it yet. So there was a, initial plan that we kind of put together, and you can revise your plan, you can move it around, you can change it with, you just have to submit paperwork to the state, basically. But we haven't used it yet. We haven't tapped into it yet. Jamie had some preliminary plans to use it on some of our technology for security kinds of things, cameras like this right now, basically, and so there were some thoughts preliminarily about using it years ago, but we just haven't used it. So we got this money that's sitting there. It's been there for 8 years. The state hasn't said, hey, at this point you better use it or else you're going to lose it, but you never know. We want to use it. We don't want to lose the money. It's been sitting there, basically. So if we were to get the cameras, what I would suggest to the board is that we do it, but I think we do it through the Smart Bonds Act money. And the difference is it's 100% reimbursement versus between 80 and 85% reimbursement. So again, you pay for it up front and then you get reimbursed. They're both, you got to pay for them up front before you get your reimbursements. But this one you get 100%, and it's a very small amount as compared to what, that 1.79, what's there, basically. Thoughts?
I just have a clarification question. The 1.7, where is it sitting?
There's a state account that you have to.
So we have a credit for 1.7
Correct,
million.
yes. So you put it in. Yeah, it's
Okay.
not
So
like-
we did put we did put a plan in at one point in time.
Yes, that was 8 years ago.
8
Jamie
years ago.
submitted a plan.
And we didn't use any of the money, or that's what's left?
We haven't used a dime yet.
So we didn't enact our safety plan?
No. So safety plan, no, we have a safety plan, security plan. That's totally different.
No. I'm saying whatever we were going to use this money for, the plan that we submitted that got us the 1.7 in credit,
Right.
we never did anything
Not as of
to
yet.
act on it.
Not as of yet. And that plan had in there some additional technologies for the district, which included some cameras, but also some equipment, like technology kinds of equipment. So no, we haven't gone through and actually gone forward and moved forward with getting that money allocated as of yet. Right.
Okay.
So yeah, you do have a credit. It's a good pot of money, and again, it's there. So I think we should use it. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Okay.
I think so.
Yes.
My question is it assigned already to the plan that was utilized? Are there limitations and restrictions on the money and how we can use it?
Yes.
Going to our plan that was submitted?
So you had an original plan that was submitted. If you didn't use the plan, you can go back and you can revise your plan and change it at any time. You can do that. Now, are there restrictions on the money? Yes. It can only be used for like enhancing security measures, technology like computers, you can get smart boards, those kinds of things, those pieces. And the other piece is that you can use it for upgrades for like classrooms, like classroom spaces. Now, of course, there's not a lot of money to do huge renovations for your schools, but like little mini projects if you want to do something like in a classroom or something, do some renovations there. So yes, you can do it for that. There's also one more piece, preschool. I think there was some stuff in there around preschool too. If you wanted to do some space kind of renovations around preschools, you could do that as well. Sir?
So would we be able to utilize any of this money in the capital project going forward on things that we would have to remove in terms of scope of the capital project? Would
So
be
if
able
it
to
falls
then-
in those categories,
We can?
yes, you can. If it falls
Okay.
in those categories, right? As long as it's in those categories. Now, there are some rules if you do capital project. So no matter what project you do, so the cheapest project you can do is like an outlay project. Is that the word I'm using correctly? The outlay projects, which are capital outlay, which is like 200,000, 250 or less. I can't remember the exact threshold of it. But there is a capital outlay project you can do in your district. And I'd have to check to see how that connects with this particular piece. A capital outlay just says, hey, you can't go past this amount of money, basically. It's a smaller project that doesn't require a vote from the public, okay? All right. So there are some things you could use with this money, yeah, and that's one of them that you could use. So I think this is needed. This is definitely, I would recommend this to the board, just for security and safety outside. We've already had some things happen at the beginning of the year. It'll help us to see and watch and monitor what's happening outside. And then I would say, if you want to do it, then we can do it. My suggestion would be, let's go through the smart bonds piece. Now, what you could do is wait till the end of the year, like in terms of paying the front fees up front. You can do one of two things. You have some monies, some of your reserves that you can use, or wait till the end of the year, see what the surplus is if we have money left over, and if we have enough to do this, which I think we will, take it from there, pay for the equipment, and then get our reimbursement within a year later. That's my recommendation to the board. Tom, you thinking?
The other question was relative to the current budget in terms of any technologies that we're going to be utilizing now. Would we be able to utilize?
I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. Yes.
Lovely.
Yes, okay. Sir?
Is there any sunset or expiration date on these funds?
At this point, no,
Okay,
but I don't want to risk it.
okay. No, and my second one was going to be kind of what I think you just alluded to. If there's million plus and we're only talking 60K, you got other ideas to buy stuff.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm going to talk
Thank you.
about in just a minute.
Nancy, do you mind just commenting on that, though? Because over 8 years, we've purchased a lot of security equipment over 8 years, and so I'm just a little confused. Yeah, I'm very confused.
So this plan came about 8
years
years
ago.
ago, possibly. And what happened is Jamie had to create a plan, and the plan was how to use these funds. Other school districts got multi-million dollars more than we did. Our allocation is actually small for our size of a school district, and it's because we looked wealthy at the time that the allocation came out. Had we gotten it now, I think we would have seen a lot more money from the Smart Schools Bond Act. But what happened is Jamie had to create a plan on how to use this money. He had submitted an initial plan which did not use the full almost $1.8 million. And then we also have to work with our architects, and if it's anything to do with infrastructure, and our architects and our engineers, especially if it has to do with cameras and wiring and things like that within our school buildings. And I think that was the majority of what Jamie had looked at. And it's not just a really quick kind of project. We actually had a company come in, go through all of our buildings, meet with all of the principals to determine where do we need cameras, where do they think their blind spots are in their buildings. So it's quite a large process. And then that company prices everything off of state contract in order to give us a cost on what they think that project has to, that the whole cost of that project will be. And then we have to get a cost from the architects, we have to get a cost from the engineers. So it was really quite a lengthy process. That has been in there. I think that we're going to start with getting the cameras and the things. We asked for revised quotes. Jamie did recently, so he has all updated numbers. And we're also looking at providing some security enhancements, such as the blue light system, which we have at the high school and at Layton, and do that same kind of system, security system, at the other schools. So, you know, it was there, we knew it was there, we knew it was never going to expire. And we just wanted to be thoughtful, and there were a lot of other things going on in the district in terms of capital projects. So we wanted to make sure that the timing was right when we actually used the money. And that's now.
All right, so I'm just going back. So we've got this source, and I would say if the board is okay, you know, if you need time to think about it, we can think about it, but I would say this would be the best source to use, and I think it would really help. Would you all be in agreement with us moving forward? 1, 2, is that a yes from everybody? All right, we're gonna go ahead with that. Okay. moving forward. All right, let's go to the preliminary budget. So we've been working on the budget. Let me say the process has just been back and forth, right? We're not totally done yet because we don't know what's going to happen with the state legislature, right? They may change things on us. They may say, hey, we gave you these projections and it may be a little bit less, or we gave you these projections and we're going to give you a little bit more, or we gave you the projections, it's going to be status quo, what we sent to you. So we don't know the final until the legislature comes out with their budget. We were hoping it was going to be here on the 1st, but here we go again, another year where we don't have it yet on time, basically. What we have heard from folks, advisors, other folks in this work is basically we don't expect to see large differences in state aid from the executive state run. It will hopefully be as it is. There is still a very strong commitment to helping around the foundation aid. The governor recently said, listen, we're going to make districts whole. And so we started some of that work last year. We got some of that work going this year, and then we go up to 2024, Nancy, if I remember correctly, with respect to that. Well, that's kind of just what I said. The district is slated to receive a large increase, and just keep in mind, last year we had an increase in aid for this school year. This upcoming year is a larger increase, and then so we'll have another year with another increase. So, $5.9 million extra for just foundation aid. So we had some other aids as well that came in, right? I think the total package was like $7 million plus, but the foundation aid is 5.9 on top of what we've had, what we got this year. So that's a good thing, right? That gives us more to do, for our district. Okay.
Can I ask a question about
You
that?
can.
So I just have a question about how, I know that goes back to a lawsuit going back decades, and the new governor had said she was just going to resolve it and fund it. Is that budget dependent as well? Like, is it like, so politically, if the landscape changes, is this likely for the next years to go away potentially?
So everything can be, changed if the state legislature wants to. I think because this fight has gone on for so many years, and now there's been, a public voicing of the settlement that's a part of this, I don't think that we'll see that go backwards.
Okay, okay. But the legislate, that does have to be, they're part of the same annual legislative budget.
Yep. So I don't see anything changing with that. We haven't, from fiscal advisors, which is, the group, not fiscal advisors, excuse me, Capital, Questar, BOCES, which is the big financial group that districts get a lot of advice from. They've been very solid that this is well set in stone. Nancy, have you heard anything else? That's pretty much what I've heard.
No, that's exactly what I heard in terms of the foundation aid. If that was from the settlement of a lawsuit. So I think that they have to go through and comply with the tenets of that lawsuit and make us whole within 3 years.
Okay.
So I do have a question as we're on this. Is this something that's going to go up and stay steady, or is this something that's going to go up to compensate and then go down?
No.
At least program-wise.
So what will happen is so you got a bump this current school year for this year. You're going to get another bump for the next year, right? And then you'll get one more bump, right? And then you'll be at your aided level, okay? So we don't expect you to go all the way back down from where you were 2 years ago, right? So it's kind of moved you up to, really, it's moved us to where we should have been all along, right? So now, some people have asked, hopefully we have more aid, we would have had more aid than that this year and the next year. And then that aid piece kind of levels out. So we do have to be careful, right? You're going to have more money, so districts are being encouraged wherever you can to try to save, right? Don't bring your cost all the way up to that level, right? So be careful because, a couple years from now, you won't have that extra aid coming in. And then keep in mind too, we got a big chunk right now. ESSER, ARP monies, those are there, right? However, 2 years from now, they go away. So whatever you do, you want to be very cautious, very careful with your spending. So like if you recall, I think we had a discussion earlier in the year or last year, over the summer I think it was, about ARP and ESSER. I think the question was, hey, we're going to get a lot of staff. What are we going to do to make sure that we don't, 2 years from now, when that drops off, what are we going to do? So remember, if you'll recall, I said we're going to be watching retirements very closely. We're going to be looking at breakages. And then some, the work that we're going to do is we're going to also try to bring in services from the outside, because we want to be careful. When 2 years come, nobody likes a cut, right? People don't like it. And we'll also look at attrition as well if we do need to make changes. So everybody's keeping an eye on that, because I don't want to use the term fiscal cliff, but people use that term, right? And everybody wants to be careful. The good news is we'll be aided more than we have ever seen aided before. So we just want to be careful with how we use everything. There's a lot there, okay?
So I'm very happy that the way you just explained it, because it really brings in the kind of three dynamics, which is what has been our normal budget, what is going to be an increase because we were underfunded before, and what is a momentary thing with the federal stimulus to start bringing us back because of COVID, right? Some of which we're going to see long-term, the ARP and the ESSER we're going to have a finite amount of time. So I do appreciate you saying you don't go spend everything, especially look at permanency versus contracting out. The one thing I will say though is just a way to possibly look at this when it comes to the long-term financing, not the ARP, not the ESSER, but the long-term aspect of it, is that we're getting a big increase because we've been underfunded. Because I think I'm right, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think we spend about as much per pupil, per student, as the average. We're not high, we're not really low. I think we're kind of in the middle, right? So if we've been doing that based on our ability to get revenue through the taxes, through pilots, through our aid, if we're getting money back because we were underfunded before, theoretically, one could say we were also overtaxing. That because we were underfunded, we had to put that money to the tax base to be able to collect enough revenue just to keep our pupil average the same. So I'm not saying that we need to use this as an excuse to slash taxes everywhere, but I think that tax revenue should be a part of the conversation. Just if you look at it in that way that we were underfunded, so we had to get the money from elsewhere. Just a thought.
Yes, and I think that when we have our study discussions with Dr. Rick Timps, he's going to talk a lot about this section that you just brought up, okay? So when you don't have as much income coming in, right, you got to find a way to get the income. I'm not sure that our taxpayers have been overtaxed. I mean, I can just say, I can only say the last 2 years, okay? This year and, one before. There's been a 0% increase, right? We are projecting one this year, right? So, well, we're talking about that one, and we'll talk that through.
And we've pulled from reserves.
Yes. Well, there's been some.
Not this last year, but in previous
years you have.
years, we've pulled from reserves.
So I want to be careful about saying we've overtaxed folks, but I do think that when we have Dr. Timms come in and talk a little bit about the studies, and I'll talk about that in just a minute once we get through this portion, I think that's a good part that I know he'll come and talk to the board about and just kind of let you ask some questions, and we can kind of plan from there, okay? I think that'll help with some of that planning.
I will make it clear, I am not stating empirically that we have.
Right, just to be
I'm saying
careful.
as a concept,
Right.
because we want our pupils, average is not a horrible thing. We're on average per pupil. If you think about where you get the money from, if the state says, well, we weren't giving you enough, we were getting it from somewhere else.
Yeah.
That was the point.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So just to talk about revenue, just to kind of shift gears here. So in terms of property taxes this year, and pilots and pieces, we're just going to go down and just let you kind of see here. Nancy, if you want to just talk about the chart, if you could, please.
Sure. So the board had requested that the levy remain flat with a 0% increase, which is what we factored into the revenue in the budget. Pilots were showing a slight decrease of $17,164. That's looking at all of the pilots as a whole. State aid is estimated to go up $4.8 million from the current year, and the majority of that is the foundation aid increase, which Dr. Kelvin spoke about. We also have in here, which is highlighted in yellow, the building aid on the emergency project. If you remember, that we're going to get aid in the same, in the year following the filing of the final cost report, and we should get that aid back next year. But that is also shown in the expenditure section as an interfund transfer back to the capital fund. So it's an in and it's an out, but it's a one-time event. And that's why we have it broken out. It's usually shown in, as part of state aid, but I wanted to make sure that it was broken out so that the board could recognize that this is the 88% that we're going to get back on that project. Other revenue consists of Medicare or Medicaid reimbursements and just general stop-loss insurance and just some other revenue that we may have. And that's projected to go up $27,185. So the total change in our revenue from 22-23 to from 21-22 is $7,574,296.
Nancy, I just had a question regarding our real estate taxes. That number was the same from last year, but we don't know what this year's is yet, correct?
Correct. So
What-
this is the property taxes, this is the levy. So two things affect the levy. One is the number of properties on the tax roll, and the other is the, and I'm drawing a blank and I apologize, the equalization rate. Yep. So those two things, depending on how those change, it's going to affect what people pay per dollars on their taxes, but it doesn't, the levy is the levy.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying the number you have in there for 22, 23 is not, that's the same number. So we get the same no matter what? That's based off new assessments. We have the pilots for a revenue stream, we have property taxes. Property taxes and assessments that went in last year should more than likely be a different number this year.
So, no, so on the property taxes, so this is how much, the levy is how much we put into our budget to support the local share, right?
Okay.
So if our levy was 26 million last year, we're saying that it's not changing for next year. It's still $26 million. What can change is the tax rate, how much you pay per thousand.
Okay.
And that can either go up a smidge, but lately it's actually gone down lower than what we've estimated.
And so just because I don't think that this can probably be said enough times in the conversation in the next 2 weeks, that yellow field, right? That $2.751 million, that's going to be coming back to us, and we're applying that to the capital project. That is not something we're adding to this budget that will carry over to other budgets.
Correct.
Purely capital budget reasons.
Yes, that's correct. Okay?
And you're right.
It can't be said enough.
I think Lisa.
So Tom, just to make sure that it was clear, because what Nancy had said just a little bit before, when we were talking about all the state aid increases coming in, we had, I think, previously decided as a board that we wanted to try to keep the levy to be the same. So you're right that like the housing assessments may go up or down, but the levy is going to be, is going to be the same.
Yes.
We had chosen to make it the same.
I was looking at relative to assessment and the number that we would be getting, but I'm understood. Got it.
Okay, so I think Jim was just talking a little bit about the emergency soil project. So the contaminated soil, as you know, was found in the area of Old Wilbur Field. The initial estimates for the project was about 5.7. Actual costs approximately around 3.1 million. Then there's 88% of the aid that will come back to the district. This is a one-time increase in building aid and will be offset by interfund transfers back to the capital fund. The difference between the amount of the project that is aided and the total amount of the project is the local share. The local share then is estimated at this point in time, $375,206. And I think, again, yes, one-time increase on building aid, and that, you know, this is included in our budget this time because, again, we had that project, and this is the process we have to follow, basically. Okay, sir?
Now, and we said our local share is actually coming from the 2018 capital project, right?
That is what was discussed at previous meetings, but it is my recommendation to either use surplus or pull it for reserves this year in order to make that transfer to the capital projects so that that money can be used for either 3B, Phase 3B, or a few future down the road.
I appreciate and understand your recommendation, but if my memory serves, there's a standing resolution by this board that all funds from the soil remediation must come from the 2018 capital project. Has that
There was
changed?
yes, there was a change with that. If I remember correctly, we had a board meeting, and I think Jim wasn't there. And we had fiscal groups, and let me
Right.
pull up all that information. I'll get
Okay,
it for you, Jim.
I
There was a-
apologize
There was a
then if
change
I-
on that.
there was a
I'll get the
problem.
information for you.
It was,
The subtle change in
Yes.
right,
verbiage.
and it had to do with, that it has to come from the general fund in order to be reimbursed by aid, right? Like it was, we went back and forth with
Yeah,
two different
you weren't at that board meeting.
groups,
when that
but.
came up.
Okay.
But we can get that
Yeah.
for you, and I can share that information.
Right.
Correct. I'll get you the information, Jim, so you can see exactly what we're talking about. Okay? All right. Okay, so all right, this information that we just shared with you, emergency soil project, preliminary revenues, just wanted to make sure everybody had that. Now, in terms of our budget, so again, just as we were kind of working again with the numbers that we had in front of us, we wanted to keep in mind the goals that the board had in place for this upcoming year. And that was that we would create a budget that's fiscally sound, not excessive to our taxpayers, that it would be flexible, provide flexibility within codes, budget codes, if something had to be moved around because of an emergency or something came up, like the gas lines that we just had to deal with. We wanted to have that extra flexibility in there, that it would be foolproof in case we had an emergency like that, which I just mentioned. Flowing, that it had enough cash flow available in case state aid is withheld, and also alignment, that our budget would be aligned to the district strategic plan and consider long-term perspectives as well. All right, so tonight I want to share with you a little bit about the administrative portion of the budget. It's the last section that we kind of needed to go over. And this section deals with a number of departments. So there's Board of Education areas on there, the district clerk, district meeting, chief school officer, business administration, auditing, treasurer, tax collector, purchasing, fiscal agent, legal, personnel, records management, security, central storeroom, central mailing, central printing, the central data processing, school association dues, assessments on school properties, BOCES administrative cost, curriculum development and supervision, the supervision of special programs, supervision of regular school programs, and then in-service training. All of that goes into the administrative portion of the budget. All right, so we're just going to go line by line and kind of go through each of the items that we have. So the biggest drivers really in the budget at this point in time are really salaries. Across the whole budget is really salaries and benefits. That 85% of this budget is salaries and benefits, okay? So in terms of salaries, we'll just start at the top, come down to the bottom, and Nancy, we'll let you go ahead and do it, okay?
So this is the summary of the whole administrative part of the budget. Salaries are projected to go up $526,808. Equipment is projected to go up $40,000. Contractual is projected to go down $87,730. And following each of these slides, the next slide will actually go through the line by line, and then I'll give you the rationale. BOCES is projected to go up $281,251, and supplies are projected to go up $16,700. So the total increase in the administrative budget to date is $777,029. Then what I've done is, as I've done before, I've broken out the each of the categories in the administrative budget into their functional total. The Board of Education has a $0 increase. The district clerk has a $1,350 increase. District meeting, $17,500 increase. Chief school administrator, $132,482 increase. Business administration, $136,487 increase. And this is not, I just want to make it clear that this is not just salaries. This is salaries, equipment, if it falls in there, contractual, and supplies, all lumped in together.
Nancy, before
Yes.
you go on, just to be clear, obviously the district clerk makes more than that, so it's not, you know what I'm saying? Isn't comprehensive for that individual, and then also,
The district clerk falls under the superintendent's budget, which
Okay.
is the chief school administrator in terms of salary.
okay, that was my next question, is who's included in that number?
So what goes under the district clerk, the area there?
So that is just the, that is the videographer that we have for the school board meetings. And I think that's the majority of it.
And then who's included in chief school administrator?
That would be the superintendent, superintendent's secretary, and in there is, I believe, we have budgeted for an assistant superintendent position.
Okay, as you go through this, if those new positions are embedded, could you just let us know, just that we're
Sure.
seeing those? Okay, and
And on the next page, I think there's some more detailed items.
it looks like a business administration is also a significant jump, so what is that jump from?
So that is for the new assistant director position. And regular contractual increases for staff and additional BOCES service, which is on the next slide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
next slide gives you definitions for everything, more details, rather, excuse me.
doesn't say that the assistant director and the director are falling under business administration. That didn't have the position.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about.
Let's give the clarification, but
Okay,
we were
so
just
we can,
wondering what positions fell into this category.
absolutely. Okay, we can do that, no problem. Okay. Do you want to finish the auditing? You had the auditing number.
Oh,
you
I'm
had to-
sorry. And auditing had a 0% increase.
Okay.
So, as I said, the Board of Education function had no change. The district clerk, there was an increase in the rate and the number of meetings being filmed from the videographer. District meeting, that had an increase because we needed training for new voting machines, and there was a change in the voting supplies that we had to provide because we are now doing our own machines. Chief School Administrator, as I said, that includes the superintendent's contract, and it includes an assistant superintendent contract. It includes a 403B payment in there, along with the superintendent's administrative assistant. Business administration increased, we added an assistant director this year. We had regular contractual increases, and that's for everyone in my department. And then we have additional BOCES services as well. And as I said, auditing had $0, no change. The treasurer is projecting a decrease of $7,725. That is all salary. Tax collector is a $0 change. Purchasing is a $2,187 change. Fiscal agent fee, which is for our fiscal advisors, is a $0 change. Legal is a decrease of $100,000 from the previous budget. And personnel shows an increase of $36,042. The treasurer change was a change in the personnel and a reduction in hours. Tax collector was no change. Purchasing shows an increase of the $2,187, and that's due to contractual increases. Fiscal agent fee, again, no change. Legal, we reduced that $100,000. We reduced the use of outside legal firms. And personnel, we had 2 new positions, one of which has already been hired for the typist, and the other one is for an onboarding specialist, along with contractual increases. There was a decrease in BOCES and in the municipal service, which is our agreement with the city of Oswego in terms of providing us personnel services. And that netted out to an increase overall of $36,000. Public Information Systems is showing an increase of $18,097. We were using, that is for our BOCES PR services. Security is showing an increase of $50,278. Central storeroom, $5,629. Central printing and mailing is a decrease of $13,915. Central printing is an increase of $16,825. And central data processing is, we're projecting an increase of $60,004. The other way.
Sorry about that.
One more map.
Doesn't want to be nice to me.
Nope.
Okay.
Back again.
Back one more? Sorry about that.
There,
there we go.
there we go.
Sorry, everybody.
Public Information Systems, that's additional public relations services. So BOCES does a level 1, 2, or 3. We had a level 2 this year. They did inform us that we've really been using them at a level 3. So that's what we're going to go to next year, which is why that increase. Security, there's an additional security officer in the budget. So we have, right now, we have 2 security people. We're looking to add another one. And then there was a decrease in contractual expenditures, and there's also an increase in supplies. This also includes all of the money that we pay OPD for when they come, if we need them at games or if at events. And it also includes our SROs. The SROs are expected to get an increase this year for what they had. So they haven't had an increase in a long time from the Sheriff's Department. So total, I think it was a $4,000 increase for the 2 SROs for this year. Central mailing and printing is showing a decrease, and that's due to our use for BOCES print services. Central printing is showing an increase of $16,825. That is for a $20,000 piece of equipment, which we haven't been able to buy. It is a paper cutter, a heavy-duty paper cutter that is used in the print shop. Central data processing, and that is an increase in contractual services, an increase in equipment and fees.
I just have a quick question about the printing. I mean, with email, how much printing do we actually do?
We still do quite a bit of printing in our own print shop. We do have now copiers, but they are all controlled by passwords now, so we can control the number of copies being made. But our print shop still does quite a sizable amount of print jobs for teachers in the buildings.
Program, events that come up, certificates, there's a lot of printing that happens across the district. Less than what I think they probably had 3 years ago, but there's still a lot going on there. What do we got?
The other way, Matt.
Go the other way? Where do we need to go
Keep
to?
going. I think you're going
Insurance.
backwards. Nope, that's backwards.
Hang on, sorry about that.
You're going back.
There?
Okay, right there.
All right, sorry about that.
Insurance is projected to go down $12,000. Association dues is flat. Assessments on school properties are flat. BOCES administrative cost, this is for all of the administrative cost, is projected to go up $166,698. Curriculum development and supervision up $96,569. And supervision of special programs up $31,011. So we're projecting insurance to decrease because of a decrease in what we actually spend in our student accident insurance. Association dues and assessments on properties, there's no change. BOCES administrative cost, that's what BOCES charges in our administration fee. And also, there was a slight increase in our BOCES debt payment for the project at Mexico. Curriculum development and supervision is increasing. There's a retirement payout in there. There's a director of math. And it's not the 3 TOSAs because they were moved to, and I apologize, I didn't catch that. They were moved to the program budget because they're teachers and they're not administrators. So I took them out of the administration budget. So the 96,000 reflects them out of there? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I apologize, I didn't catch that. Supervision of special programs, they have, there's contractual increases in there, and they also needed an increase in supplies. Sometimes when you look at something over and over again, you don't catch the simplest things.
There we go. Go ahead.
Supervision of regular schools is projected to go up $133,420, and in-service training is projected to go up $6,090.
And then your total,
$777,029.
change, but your total budget amount is?
That is the total dollar change in the budget. You want me to read the figures?
Yeah, well, I thought you were gonna, yes. So the proposed. Yeah, there's one more screen.
Yeah, if you could just, before you get to the totals,
Okay.
talk about the supervision of regular school. Like,
Go ahead.
what is that number?
Sure.
And that increase?
So supervision of regular schools, there were some contractual increases. We have administrative subs, and these are for when principals are out of buildings. We have some money in there for administrative subs. And again, I didn't catch that. The administrative intern is out, but there is money in there also for doctoral tuition reimbursement for some of our employees.
Per their contract.
And in-service training, it's just BOCES increases. So overall, the proposed administrative budget portion of our total budget is $9,267,350, which represents a $777,029 increase over the current year.
So just kind of now recapping, going back, so we had the capital budget, and we also had the program portion, and we just kind of want to go over some items from there as well, okay? Salaries, go ahead.
So this is just the summary from the capital budget. Salaries are estimated to go up at $189,304. Equipment is flat at $160,000. Contractual, we're projecting that is going to decrease by $199,359. BOCES is showing an increase of $25,310. Supplies is showing a decrease $17,500, and debt service is going up $98,991. And this is showing the interfund transfer back to capital in the same amount that we're showing from building aid in the revenue section of $2,751,511. The change in our capital budget is $2,848,257.
In the program budget?
So the largest part of our budget is the program budget. Salaries are projected to go up $1,142,908. Equipment is showing a slight decrease of $13,555. Our contractual piece of that is showing a slight increase of $24,446. BOCES is projected to go up $1,024,183. Supplies, $118,510 increase. Benefits, decrease of $160,743. And for a total increase in the program budget of $2,135,749. So what we're showing is our revenue, projected revenue from the first slide that we showed is $98,734,107. Our current budget, revenue budget, $91,159,811, for a dollar change in revenue of $7,574,296, or an 8.3% increase in our revenue. Appropriations, we're estimating at $96,920, or $920,846. Current budget, $91,159,811, for an increase in our appropriations of $761,035, or a 6.3% increase in our appropriated budget. So when you take your revenue and you subtract out your appropriations, we're showing that we have more cash than we are spending, of $1.8 million.
Keeping in mind that the capital, the emergency soil project is in this, so we would have to really make sure that the public understands why this has gone up. We have that soil project in there, okay? But yes, there is more revenue than there are appropriations for this upcoming year, okay? Go ahead, Nancy.
So the appropriation slide, this shows exactly what Dr. Kelvin was just speaking about. From the previous slide, our appropriations are $96,920,846, which is showing a 6.3% increase in revenue. If we take our one-time emergency building aid from that amount, we have a net budget of $94,169,335, which is a 3.3% increase of our regular budget overall.
Now, go ahead.
Can I just ask a quick question? So on the appropriation side, that made sense to me. On the revenue side, if we take out that 2.7 million, are we going to be under revenue for appropriations, or is it?
It's a dollar for dollar. So you have to increase your revenue and you have to increase your expenditures at the same time. It looks like your
Okay, so it was in
budget is
both, so
going
we're
up,
still, okay.
but it just evens out.
Got it.
It's a wash. Yep, Pam said it right, it's a wash. Okay. So, we did want you to know, I know the assistant superintendent piece was a concern, and so we did take that out as well. If the board does not wish to do that, we did take that $130,000 amount out, and that would have, benefits also, we pulled that out too. Total of $169. Those are projected numbers, by the way. We don't know what that would come in at. But the adjusted budget without the assistant superintendent, $96,751,846, which is really a 0.002% of the total budget. So it's not really, it is an amount of money, but it's not the total big allocation from the budget. Okay. So just, boy, this machine does not like me. Just so the board is clear, when we put this budget together, we had talked with the board originally about, do we want to try to do a budget that gives us a 0% increase for the taxpayers, right? We're still finishing up the pandemic, trying to make it through. We're not quite done with it, but we're still trying to work through it, basically. So this budget does that. It does give you a 0% increase for your taxpayers. Included in the budget, just a couple things. Also, so there was some concerns about having some extra cleaners, or some extra folks at two of our schools, Charles E. Riley, and also here at the high school. Both of those are in this particular budget. They're in the budget, yes. Also, you had asked about, let me make sure I get them all right. Nancy, help me if I'm missing it. There was concern about intramurals, if I remember correctly. You wanted to try to do an intramural program. That is included in the budget as well, okay? The only thing that was asked, well, we talked about it, but you didn't say yes or no, was around coursework. Remember at the last meeting, we talked about the extra coursework for kids who are taking college level coursework. So we estimate right now that would be about 100,000. Just we want to see how that works this year to see what goes with that. That number could go down or be higher. We're not sure because it would be our first year doing it. If you want to do it, we can do it. We can put it into the budget because we have 1.8 million and we could pull from there. But you all would need to be in agreement if that's what you want to do. That's the only thing we didn't put in because we didn't know where you all. We talked about it, but we didn't take a final vote on that. So we could certainly do that if you would like to do that. You just need to let us know. And again, so positions in or positions out, we can do, clearly, we feel like we can do everything that we would like to do, and still you'd have extra left over for the district that you can choose to put, hopefully in whatever reserve, basically. Okay?
That's
All right. Any questions or any concerns? All right. Sir.
Just a thought on it overall. I know in your presentation, you're going to talk about the proposed positions more.
Yep.
Right, so the assistant superintendent was one of 9 positions that we've talked about. 4 have already been approved by the board.
I was going to say.
No, yeah,
it's not
4 have already
okay.
been approved by the board, but really in one budget season, we're talking about adding 9 lines, according to your chart.
Well, so just go back again. Some of these lines are positions that we currently, I'm not sure which positions you're exactly talking about.
The ones that were in yellow that you said were new lines.
In yellow.
When I asked for the color coding, you said the ones in yellow were new? Those 9.
Hang on, let me get the chart. That's what I'm looking for. I have a chart someplace. Go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry.
So, yeah, and I don't mean to jump ahead, but it does pertain to it. If I look at the budget, we have a total budget of about 3.3%, which is larger than last year as a percentage. I thought last year was quite large based on history. Our program budget's only up about 3%, but our administrative salaries are up 13.3% based on these numbers that you've shown. With the total administrative budget being up 777, which was 9.2%. So it does seem, and I understand based on your chart why, that a great deal of these costs are within the salaries as a percentage, right, at least being raised. I guess one of the things I think, that I look at is for years we've had surpluses. In the last couple of years, we've had budget surpluses maybe a little larger than normal because we've been having in-person instruction, transportation costs, the lack of athletics with transportation costs. We're able to save money. But if I look at the 3 years pre-COVID, we averaged $3.5 million a year in surplus based on our budget books, the budget books that I got from the business office. So, and I've shared that all with the group in the past. So if I'm looking at an average of millions of dollars when we had a 3% raise last year, 2.75% the raise the year before, it seems to me the phrase has been used to tap the brakes. I'm not the one who invented it. I've heard it from board members. And I would still advocate for us looking to tap the brakes on a budget that's quickly approaching $100 million, right? At 94 million, roughly you can think about that if we do another 3% next year, it's going to be right around that sweet $100 million mark. So, well, we have a lot of this money left over, and I know the group has said, we want to go with a 0 raise in the tax levy. If we do truly have that much money, I think we should consider lowering the tax levy. This district has done it in the last 5 years, and I don't think it's beyond reasonable to consider doing it again this year.
So with respect to lowering the tax levy, my response would just be, I think, and before our presentation is done today, I have a portion about the study that's coming up. I think we should listen to our study folks to talk. They're going to talk about tax levy and future fiscal planning, right? And I think that might be better answered in that process with respect to that. We tried to create a budget that I would say, again, will create that 0% increase. Keeping in mind that we are, 85% of what we need is that's in the budget again, is salaries and benefits. They're raising. We won't be able to keep the budget, not to say that you're thinking this, but it goes up every year. So we tried to be careful with how we did that. I think we also should keep in mind the cost of inflation. So the cost of inflation as of today, the percentage that it's gone up is 7.87% as of today. Yeah, we have a budget that is only going up 3.3%. So we tried to balance out and be careful with that. We are also asking taxpayers for 0% increase. With respect to cost drivers for programming and just in terms of the budget, our cost drivers are our programs. We are also dealing with unprecedented kinds of increases in certain areas. One example, the cost of gasoline for districts. I mean, in this budget, we equated for and tried to make sure we were careful about gasoline. We don't know what that's going to look like next year, but we know right now the prices they're really there. We hope that this thing will go backwards, so we wanted to be careful. Specialized services. Now more than ever, we have a number of needs, higher needs for our students, and so you'll see we have a special ed budget that's kind of gone up, and the needs in terms of mental health, all of those things are rising, and so we're reacting to drivers in the economy, and yet trying to be as careful as we possibly can. I think with respect to the budget also, that it's going to be very difficult to get a 0% increase where, the taxpayers aren't paying more in taxes, and yet you're going to try to, keep the same level, of services and supports for kids. It's just very difficult. So there is a way for us to be able to save more, right, in terms of with the funding that's coming in. But it's not with a 0% increase for our taxpayers. And so we tried to have that balance wherever we could. I do understand with respect to the comment that you made around tapping the brakes. I think we are constantly looking at, I can tell you, okay, what's needed from what isn't needed. Is this where we get this pot of money from, or is there another place that we need to kind of investigate? And is it really necessary? And the last thing I think I'd like to just share is so we have a strategic plan that's pretty comprehensive, and there's a lot of needs in the plan around reading, around math, around mental health, there's just a number of things in that plan. And to be able to drive the plan and to do some of the things that we really want to do and realize those, there's some things are going to cost us a little bit more to be able to do that. But we are committed to wherever we can drive, pumping the brakes, I think is what you called it. Yeah, great example, the efficiency EPC project, right? There's ways that we can realize savings across the district. We want to do that to be able to save money for our taxpayers across the board. So just some thoughts. I appreciate your feedback. And
Nancy, isn't there a negative feedback loop if you lower the levy in terms of state aid?
No, I don't believe from state aid if you lower the levy.
Okay.
I
thought that's what we were told in years past.
No, and it affects your tax cap.
Yes, I was just going to say.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm thinking.
And when you lower it, just keep in mind the next year when you go to raise it, and you try to raise it back to what you really need, it's catch up. So people may get a little concerned about how much you're raising up the taxes, basically. But I do think
We're even going to get more state aid next year, though.
we are.
See, that's where I'm going. We're still getting more money.
But only until 2024.
That is
But then it
correct.
plateaus, and everything else could plateau with it.
That plateaus, and then you lose some other funding here. I do think that Dr. Timms will do a good job with helping to capitalize, and I'm going to have him watch this portion of our video, and I think that'll help the board a little bit here for sure. I think that will definitely help. Okay. Sir, you want to say?
I just want to say, the other element that we don't talk about, but is 2028, If 9 Mile 1 closes.
Yes,
And the
thank you.
anticipated, so we have to be mindful. I do think we're in an unprecedented time right now, and the revenue stream has gone up substantially. No, so the urge is to go, okay, let's go down, but it's going to be much tougher to lift that back up if we get into
Yes.
a pinch in a short term. So I'd much rather look at, when Dr. Timms comes in, look at it long-term, see where these surpluses, we're going to put them aside if we can ever get a nuclear reserve really actually funded. But to put that 5-year plan that reacts economically and fiscally as well, not only, that matches up with our strategic planning for the educational component.
Tom, you said that perfectly. Yes, that is one of the portions I'm sure that Dr. Timms is going to talk to the board about. The nuclear power plant is really important. We have one of the oldest nuclear reactors. And so as we start to approach that process, which is just 3 years away, that's something that we definitely want to keep in mind. So giving a lot back and not really plan that, we might have some real challenges down the road with respect to what we, okay.
So, and I guess that is, just to round out, that is to my point with the new administrative positions. Again, we've approved 4 already. There have been 9 requested total. But when I look at the numbers right now, our total budget increase is $3 million, where our administrative salary increase is $527,000. So $1 in $6 of increase goes toward administrative salaries. And proportionally, when you say budget is from the program budget is really where our money is, it is the smallest as a percent. Granted, it's $2.14 million. It's big. That's a lot bigger than $500 million. But when you talk about the total program seeing 80+% of our total, right? When I look at it, it's an increase of 2.14, but the administrative salaries go up 527. I mean, that's 25% of the salaries. That's 1 in 4 of the dollars. So we could talk about that later. But that's part of this point is any position in line we add is being added to the future budgets as a line item, unless it's being paid for through like Title IIA, which at least a couple of these positions, like the literacy position, we've already filled, can. But a lot of these are going to have to be paid for through future budgets.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they're going to, they would have to be paid for either way through future budget. Yes, I mean, that's correct.
I know I'm saying the obvious, but when we're looking long-term, that's kind of how I'm looking at the money.
So, yeah, we can come to that shortly. Did you want to say something, Tom? I'm sorry.
The only other thing I remember talking about initially, Jim, and with the ability to, adding those positions, but we have the ability, remember, to take them out.
Correct.
Yeah, right. So I'd like, I mean, in my mind, it's like we're in these uncharted waters. Let's see what the increase of revenue does. Let's see if the implementation of the strategic planning does. See if we're progressing where we want to. And then we realize if we're top-heavy or we're not being effective, then we have the ability to go in there and remove.
That is correct, yes.
Yeah,
I
these
agree,
are discussions
totally agree.
that future boards need to remember. And,
Right.
people who are, so that we are we have a commitment to evaluating.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important with the strategic planning, if we, this aligns with that, and that we
Yes.
make sure, because that's good, we'll outlive our tenures. So we need to make sure.
Okay, so just to finish up the budget portion, we'll come back to this again. So in terms of polling sites, we have the number of the different polling sites here. District 1 at Ward 10, Town of Scriba, Town of Volney, Oswego City School District residents only. The location is the Scriba Fire Station. District number 2, this is a new polling location. I think we mentioned it before in a previous meeting. It's going to service Ward 2, Ward 4, and Ward 6. The location is Crisafulli Ice Rink. District number 3, it'll service Ward 1, 3, 5, and 7. Location is Elam Grace Church. And then district number 4, it'll service Ward 8, which includes the town of Minetto, and Ward 9, town of Oswego. Oswego City School District residents only. And the location is the Oswego Town Hall. And just in terms of propositions that we're proposing for the ballot, so Proposition 1 is the school budget. And you see the amount that's there, unless the board changes its mind. It says, shall the Board of Education adopt the budget for the Oswego City School District in the amount of $96,920,846 for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2022. And then Proposition number 2, purchase of transportation vehicles. I won't read the whole thing there, but it's certainly there. And basically, under A, the purchase of 9 64-passenger diesel C2 buses and 1 37-passenger 3-wheel diesel C2 bus at a total combined maximum estimated cost not to exceed $1 $0.303 million. And then we have proposition number 3, which is the city public library proposition, in the amount of $1.388439 for the budget, which is an increase of $27,224. And just a reminder for our public, we really don't have anything to do with the Oswego Public Libraries, but because of the way that the law is set up, we have to run it through our voting process and put it onto the ballot. But we don't have anything to do with the public library and their budget, basically. Okay, so at our next meeting, we'd like to finalize with the board, the budget, because we do have some deadlines to get everything out. The public hearing would be May 3rd, and the school budget vote May 17th. So I think before we move on, I just want to make sure, the one thing, are you all, in terms of the extra coursework, do you want us to put that into the budget or not? We just want to make sure, and we can put it in to finalize the budget. Are you, yes, no? Just make sure.
I'm definitely a yes, and with the addendum that we, review it at the end of next year and make
Very
sure
good.
that it's something that, kids utilized and helped.
Okay.
I'm a yes for that.
I would support it if we could remove the Syracuse University courses. I find they're far too disproportionately costly, and we talked about opening the floodgates. When students know that these are available for college credit, will we have an increased number of students taking it? Just based on our numbers that were supplied from last time, we had 2 different SUCO courses that were about $11,000 each of money, because there was like 32, 34 students each, right? So we're talking $12,000 for 2 Syracuse University courses. I would be in favor if we go with the free Cayuga Community College or through SUNY Oswego, which I think the number was maybe like $175 or something, and then they gave you a discount if you were on a free and reduced lunch.
I think all of them have some kind of, go ahead, you want to say something?
I was just
All of
going to
them have
share that Mr. Lanigan is pursuing all of those different options to look at the most financially responsible coursework. But keep in mind that sometimes it can take up to a year for professors to be approved, our teachers to be approved by the college, and the course curriculum to be approved. So our SUPA instructors have gone through a lot of training to be certified by Syracuse University to provide that coursework. But I hear what you're saying. It is costly
And we
for
have,
families.
we also have children who have already started certain
Yep,
courses.
certain
And there's a
pathways.
pathway there, and so to pull it now from them would, I think, cause some real.
It could be something we have to phase
Right.
in over a few years, so you are allowing certain students to finish out a pathway and then phasing in a new option.
I think Jim is just saying take it out of the we will pay for proposal, not take it out of
That
the
would be good enough.
curriculum.
Taking it out of the free category would be good enough for me. Yes. They know that if they would have just 2 econ classes, right? Something like that?
Yep. It provides the graduation requirement for the 12th grade economics.
Right.
And we currently don't have another college credit-bearing option. So this would be the only college credit-bearing option for students who want a credit for econ.
So what if we kept it like this for now with the idea that
Yeah.
we, like you
Reevaluate
said,
it?
Mr. Lanigan's gonna look for more
More options.
cost-effective ways.
I mean, another option is also to say that, like, we'll subsidize college course offerings up to, like, the AP exams and the college course up to a certain amount. And maybe, I feel weird saying this because I work for SUNY Oswego, but if we wanted to have that be the cap, then we can do it, but that probably needs to come from someone else. And I don't teach any of those courses, and they don't
I
come
was
from my
going to-
department, and my department gets no revenue from any of this.
Can I just chime in?
I was
The
going to
SUPA
say-
courses are excellent courses. So I would hate to take that away from the choice of our students. As far as that, I guess if we're going to debate it.
I would say that there are some places that do, I'll say it for you, Lisa, they do set the cap at the SUNY rate, because that is the standardized statewide tuition rate for public universities.
Thank you for getting into my head and pulling that right out for me. Because yes, I would be on board with setting a particular limit, but I would not be on board with not doing the SUPAs, because I think they're really good classes, and there's a handful of kids that really benefit from them.
So if I could just say, again, part of the reason why we're going down this road is, and it's certainly up to the board, it's about equity and access for all students. Whether it's a super class or whether it is a Oswego class or a CCC class, it's about access for kids and opportunity. There are some children right now who they won't take a super class because of the cost. They just can't do it. But they have the ability, and they really should. If we're gonna offer college courses, right, then we're trying to level the playing field and access for all kids. We do have some kids who are they're held back because they can't pay for the course. And so, if we're gonna pay for the courses, my recommendation is let's pay for the courses. And we will do on our end, if we have kids who can get free or reduced prices because they qualify, we'll work diligently to reduce the price with respect to that. And then maybe give us a year to evaluate it and see how it goes. But I'm concerned about, we have a number of kids. You take that opportunity from them, they're never going to be able to take, yes, it's a big deal to take a super course. It's Syracuse University. And some of our kids, it's about academics and their ability, they have that, but they don't have the funds. So I'm advocating for access, opportunity for everybody. And if the board, after a year, doesn't want to do SUPA, then just take SUPA out. That's my thought, if we can evaluate it for a year.
No, okay, I'm just going to say, I'm just going to disagree with it because
okay.
Syracuse University, if I'm saying you're playing basketball, cool, yeah, that's a feather. Taking a class there? No, not so much. Cuba Community College, SUNY Oswego, other people, state. We are a state local institution. We should be partnering our state and local institutions, not funding private colleges. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, so rest of the board's decision, I guess.
I'd like this to be a trial year. We have SUPA in place right now, so I think that's, obviously what we need to use, and I appreciate the concept of let's not have any barriers for anyone, and I would love to have the problem that this gets too expensive because we have so many kids wanting to do this. That would be a lovely problem to have, I think.
Lisa, your thought? I'm just trying to make sure we get a final, if you want to take a vote.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm willing to do it for a trial year and to see what it goes, and we'll know next year if it's a budget overrun. We'll end up with, we'll have to maybe change our decision. I think in the long run, I think it makes sense to set a rate that we'll pay, but I'm willing to try it for a year and see how it goes.
I'm good with a year to give it a test run and see how we utilize it and what Ryan comes up with, Mr. Lincoln comes up with.
I'm kind of with Jim on this a little bit or part of Lisa's with the cap. I think we should utilize SUNY Oswego and Community College as much as we can. And if they want to take it at Syracuse, there's a level where they can get that amount paid, but I think the rest of it should be on them if they're going to take the Syracuse class. Just my opinion.
Oh, I'm all wholly supportive of paying the whole thing. I only wavered for debate reasons. But once you pointed out the equity, it's right. We can't put a limit on it. And I would love, like Heather, to have the problem that we have so many kids that want it. Just saying. And they don't have to go to Syracuse University to get the college credit and to have that college credit accepted at whatever secondary level of education they want to go to. Many of them accept those credits.
Okay, so I think we're good?
I think we're 3 and 3.
Oh, is it 3 and 3?
Linda's not here, but if you, we can readdress, like, you can put it in the budget and we'll readdress it on the vote, not, the night we vote. And so when Linda's here, she can also give her opinion. The only other thing I want to add is it takes a while to change culture. And right now, I think there's a lot of kids who are just predisposed to thinking those courses aren't for me. They're not, So I think for 1 year, taking barriers away from classes that we already have in place, I don't disagree with you all, state versus private, all of that, with the idea that Mr. Lanigan is looking for, maybe better ways to partner with SUNY Oswego and CUGA community in the long run. that's the long-term perspective. But for this year's budget, I'd just like to see all barriers removed so we can get a good idea as to what the interest is.
Okay, so we'll bring it back for the finalized piece from the board at our next meeting, okay? All right.
I do have a question on the timeline. You said April 19th finalization of budget. Does that
Yes.
mean that we're going to vote, or do we vote during the public hearing?
No, you vote at the 19th.
Okay?
Yep,
When
and
are we
then-
going to speak with Mr. Timms?
He will be, so that's coming, that's coming up right now. We'll
Before the
decide.
19th?
We're going to talk about it now.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So, well, let me just finish with the order, and then we'll come to Mr. Timms, okay? So, again, we kind of touched on this meeting around the reorganization chart. You know what the chart has on it. And we did go through again. I just want to update the board as to where we're at in terms of processes around cost. As I started out before, we have more in terms of funds than we've had before, and we're going to have more in the next year or so. But with that said, we certainly are, if there are things that we can reduce in budget lines for next year, if there are areas that we can try to, that may have gone up that we can, use for other things, then we've tried to do that. We also have grants available to us, and we try to leverage those and utilize those as well wherever possible to help us with some of these positions. So we did go back, and I just wanted to make sure I went through this again. So in our previous meeting, I talked about the Assistant Director of Business and costs coming from being transferred to the federal ARP grants. Nancy and I looked at some of the funds, and we said, hey, is there any other place we can look at? And we did have a surplus amount. Well, I don't want to call it surplus. We had an amount in a BOCES COSER that we had projected that we would use for the next year. And we looked at that COSER and said, okay, let's go back through this again, let's make sure. And it had some technology pieces, smart boards and some extra computers and things in there. And it was about $460K. And so through our conversations with Jamie, we basically said, well, do we really need this or not? Is this something that we can hold off for? And we said, yeah, there's some things that maybe we can hold off for as we reevaluate it. And so if there are things that we need, I want to go back again to the Smart Schools Bond Act. We have other funds that we can utilize moving forward. And so we thought that we kind of reduce in that area. So we do have some monies there that we could use to help to pay for the Assistant Director of Business. The typist position, we talked about costs coming from TRS line based on the trend from the teacher retirement line that can be reduced this year. We did make a little change. Again, we feel that we could do some pulling from that BOCES COSER amount that we had originally talked about. And with that savings, we feel like, hey, we can swap out one for the other, basically. Now, just in terms of the TRS line, so we get bills throughout the year that kind of help us to project what we're spending, okay? What it may come in, how it may come in. We try to use those as our best guesstimate. And those have been, we've been pretty good with being able to guesstimate where we think we're going to be at. So the TRS line, I just want to tell you, it's not like we're just kind of making it up. We get an estimated, we have a letter that comes to us each in different times throughout the year. Okay, so then we can kind of estimate based on what we got. So that's where the whole TRS idea kind of came from, basically. But we think we, again, can reduce this BOCES COSER. The onboarding specialist, again, we think we can use some funds from that BOCES COSER. And the district reduced business contractual budget by $27K. And that's under the business area. So we reduced that budget by $27,000, and then we cut the administrative intern position. I think Nancy mentioned, hey, that was on the list, so we had to take that off. So with those two areas, it's like $45,000 total, and then whatever extra left over we thought we'd take from that BOCES COSER piece. So that more than covers the onboarding specialist if we wanted to do that. Director of Literacy. So there was an update. We did hire a Director of Literacy. Her approved hire rate was $110,000. So previously, we talked about just covering it under federal Title IIA. We've had a change here. What we want to do is have the costs as we move forward in the next year covered with Title I and and ARP. So there's 50% for one, 50% for the other. And then moving forward, we want to utilize Title I and Title IIA funds, grants to cover that particular position. As Carrie shared at the last meeting, those Title I funds, we haven't seen those go away ever, right? They've always been here. Director of Math. So previously, we talked about it coming from surplus from this year. A change. We want to have the costs covered for next year with Title IIA funds, 60%, and general funds, 40% through the reduction of refund on real property taxes by $50K. So there has been a reduction in refund on real property taxes. So we took from that to try to handle that cost with the general fund. Moving forward, we can utilize also Title I and Title IIA funds, as we talked about with the literacy position. With respect to TOSAs, so we've got, previously we talked about already, we'd have that, basically you're already in the substitute line. Substitute teacher line will be used for substitutes for the TOSAs. So in terms of change this year, so the TOSAs are now in a standalone line in the budget. Nancy has moved those, as she mentioned before. The total is around 180 for TOSAs, okay? So we have 3 of them there. And we have reduced the sub-budget line by 150K, and leftover cost will come from the reduction in the teacher live streaming cost. The current combined lines for live streaming total 160K. So this year we were doing live streaming for kids who needed that kind of piece. Next year our goal is to really work in a different way. Will we still have some situations that we may have to do some streaming here and there? Yes, but I don't think we will need to do as much as we're doing this year. We would like to transition to a different model for the next year. Okay. The Executive Director of Special Education, I think we're on now. Cost, in the previous discussion, we said breakage and or TRS line, just a change. We reduced the BOCES COSER, again, that 460K. And this will cover the increase in that position. And again, if we have some need for technology, right, we can move those to those smart funds pieces. And really, if you keep in mind that additional cost is only $5,000, so that's not a lot. The assistant superintendent, if hired this year, cost will come from surplus that we would have internal, or you can take it from the TRS line that we know we have some extra on. For next year, we have reduced the budget line for live streaming again by 130. There's another 130 there, and we reduced the BOCES COSER technology by 460K. This amount in dollars will cover the position and benefits moving forward. So you have your grand totals there. What we tried to do is really look at what we have now. If we hire people now, are there ways to cover them for the rest of this year? And then we also tried to look at, okay, in the future, are there areas that we can basically take from to cover these positions? And I guess as I kind of move to some additional thoughts for the board to think through, we have additional revenue that could be used to cover the cost, needed for these administrative positions. Additional foundation aid, we know will be forthcoming up until 2024. We will have more funds than we've ever had before. And we're really trying to do some, I want to go back again to our strategic plan. We're trying to do some things strategically that we haven't been able to do before. This is more aid again than we've ever seen, and I think if we're going to try to do something, this is the time to try to do it, to make an impact. We have funds, so we can fund these positions with the understanding that should we need to enact additional efficiencies, we can always come back. I think I heard Tom mention it and Heather tonight. We want to evaluate and see how these positions go. It's not like a blanket forever, right? If we find that they're not effective and they're not moving us in the right direction, then our goal is to come back and reevaluate and rethink what we're doing. If there's something that needs to be discontinued, then we will. If there's something that we need to enhance, we'll come back and talk to the board about enhancing if necessary or needed. Okay. We do have some breakage this year. We have, I just want to let you know, we have even now like a reading position that has kind of served as a coordinating kind of position. Now that we have the literacy director that's coming in, we're not looking to rehire that position. We want to try it for a year with that literacy director to see how things go. So that is out of the budget, just so you're aware. We have, if you look in our packet tonight, you'll see a high number of people retiring. Right? So we'll have some breakage there. Okay. We understand that we have some extra funds available now through ARP and ESSER. Our plan is not to rely heavily on ARP and ESSER. We're not doing that in our ideas here. We're clear that these funds will not be here indefinitely, that they're going away in 2 years. So we haven't relied on that. And if there's a surplus in the future, you can use that. if we'd like to, we try to stay away from using surplus to fund positions, but we do have surplus, right? And we will leverage the utilization of grants wherever we possibly can. We are looking for ways to try to get the work done without having to raise prices across the district. We certainly are committed to doing that. I just have to go back again, and I'll just end with this. I've heard some of the comments that have been made, but we're trying to make an impact across the district. We really need some extra hands to do it. I think we've given enough presentations to share the work that some of our people had on them, 46 to 48 different duties. We can't continue moving that way as a district. I think it's not in the best interest of our students, and strategically, it will hamper where we're trying to go strategically. And so we're trying to get some extra hands to support all of the work that needs to be done. And I do understand that there's some changes in some of the titles. I do understand that there are some extra pieces that we asked for. I want to be clear, because I had some public folks ask me, we're not asking for all these positions to be administrators. They're not. Some of these are teachers who we have one of the goals in the strategic plan talks about aligning the curriculum and moving us forward. We need teachers to help us do that, right? That's why we have these folks in there. Some of the positions are administrative positions, but some are not. And just so we're clear, all of them are not administrators. We have some teacher needs. We have some clerical needs. We have some office staff needs. And then we do have some needs for administrators. We have added, using ARP and ESSER funds, quite a bit across the district. Just to be clear, if you really go back and look at the numbers, we added multiple teachers. We added a new learning center, for example, here in the high school. We have, multiple extra teachers to try to help us out. We're reducing some of the class sizes. We have put in counselors. We have put in services from outside agencies. There's quite a bit that's gone in. We've even put in cleaners through our work, which are very important folks, right? We've done a lot across all the positions. And yes, we're asking at this time if we can get some extra help with administration. So that's what I need to share. At our next meeting, we'll have some additional information from you, and we welcome your feedback, board, and whatever you'd like to do. But I just wanted to share those thoughts. Any questions on that at all? Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
Can you please explain, you said many times in here, that we have reduced the BOCES COSER technology by $460,000. Can you please explain what that means?
It means so we have a COSER, which is a line through BOCES. It's a agreement with BOCES, and we ask them for services. Okay, and so what we do is, there's multiple COSERs, and we say, okay, these are the amount of services or supports that we need in these areas, and each year you sign up for a level. Okay, and so we kind of looked at our level that we have this year and what we projected for next year, and at one point we projected higher. We looked at those needs. And there was some needs that after reevaluation, we felt that, hey, maybe we can kind of do without. And if we do need the needs, there's another pot or well that we can take it from.
Okay, so back in February, when we first were presented the BOCES COSER, there was an increase of $600,000 over the current year.
Yeah.
You're proposing of reducing that $600,000 ask to $140,000 ask, right, which is saving $460,000, right? So really what we're doing is, by saying a reduction in the COSER by $460,000 makes it sound like we're reducing this year's budget by $460,000. But what in essence happened is, you asked for $600,000 more for next year, realized you didn't need so much, so reduced that by $460,000. So that $460,000 is still a complete addition to the next year's budget from this year's budget. Does that make sense?
I understand. Go ahead. I'm let you finish.
No.
Go ahead. Yeah. I mean, yeah, so we,
Right.
Yes.
So it's for, we're at, so, because here's where it's, I think some of the perception comes. When it says reduce the BOCES COSER by $460,000, it makes it sound like we're saving $460,000 from somewhere. But really, you've reduced a $600,000 ask to $140,000, so this $460,000 could be put there. It's still $460,000 new to the budget next year.
Okay, so if you add up the things that we have in there, I don't believe that the things that are added up equate to the $460,000.
Oh, I'm just saying, it says we reduced it by $460,000. That's just my comment.
Yeah, so we did reduce that line that was projected down by $460,000. And then if you add up like the 30 plus the benefits for the assistant superintendent, and then you have some other people. It doesn't add up to the 460, okay?
But whatever that number is, it's not a reduction from anything, it is an addition from this year.
And I got to look at the total line. You're saying yes?
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
And my second question was my question from before. When will we speak with Mr. Timms?
Okay.
Oh,
The
that's the
next
next slide?
Yes.
Oh, I thought that was under additional. Oh, okay, study updates. My apologies.
Okay, so the last piece here is our study. So you have a draft of our transportation study. Dr. Timms has given us a quick overview, executive summary page. And then Alan Pohl and the Silky Group are working on an executive summary that will get to the board by the 19th. And then they'd like to get a final report to us by, okay? They are needing some extra time for the Alan Pohl search because they're looking at a number of things dealing with enrollment, live birth data, statistic kind of stuff, and it's taken a little bit longer than what we would like to see. But we need the time to get it right. So the TAS study and Rick Timms both are ready to come and to present to the board in terms of making a report to the board. So it's really up to the board. We can have them come at our next meeting if you'd like. We can do a workshop if the board like, separate from the board meeting. But we'd like to have them come, make a formal report to the board and share information, and then take questions back and forth, basically. Now, just if I can say, what we are not looking for is, some of these items that they're going to talk about are really big items. I don't think you'll be able to make some decisions on many of the items like right after that meeting. So I don't want you to think we're looking for you to make a big change. You might need to take some time for some of those concepts and things that they're going to talk about. I just wanted to share that. I know we have the budget meeting coming on the 19th. So what would you all like to see done? I guess it's up to the board.
But a lot of our budget conversations and our decisions about administration have centered around what these
That portion will be
reveal. So I'm just wondering, since, all of that kind of comes to a head at the budget vote, if it wouldn't be beneficial to hear from these folks prior to that date. What do you guys think? Yeah. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next complication will be
Setting a date.
you're setting a date and time that works for everybody, which we don't have to do right here, but Karen, could you have that impossible task of maybe planning a day before then that we can?
Okay.
Thanks.
So get some dates and then, or a date rather, and then we'll have them come, okay? All right. That's all that I have. I want to thank the board tonight. I'm sorry, I know I was a little bit long. Very important conversation. I just wanted to share with everybody, and I appreciate your patience this evening. I'm all set. Thank you, board.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda, items A through C. Could I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is personnel with Dr. Sweeney.
I'll do A through C together after I go through all of the folks. These are our retirements this evening. A is for Donna Simmons, who has admirably served the students and staff of the Oswego City School District as a reading teacher and principal of Fitzhugh Park Elementary School from October 1997, with a full commitment to the best interests of all students, and worked in partnership with her fellow employees. And her retirement effective date will be August 12th, 22. B is our next full batch of all of our folks who are retiring from our professional pool. Whereas the folks I'll list in a moment have all served the students and staff of the Oswego City School District in various professional educational roles. We hereby recognize their service and express our sincere gratitude and appreciation. I would like to point out, because my assistant Pat Perfetti and I had some questions today, I want to make clear to the folks who are probably listening from home, because this is a monumentous occasion when you decide to retire, that our years of service do not necessarily coincide or reflect with your service years of credit with TRS. I know sometimes people worry and think, oh my gosh, you said 28 years of service, but do I not have 30 years from TRS? And our years of service can be different, so don't worry. And also, we sometimes have folks who come on in various roles as substitutes of some sort at the beginning. Our retirement years tend to be from your probationary appointment. So again, just because I know we fielded a few questions today, we just want to clarify that. So we have Tammy Anderson, Teacher Center Director, effective 7/1/22. Kathy Oyer, School Counselor, who had previously served as a school nurse teacher and a regular professional school nurse before she became a school counselor at Minetto, also effective July 1. Heidi Carey, Teaching Assistant at Layton. Christine Castilla, Literacy Coach at Minetto. Sharice Conti, Elementary Teacher at KPS. Michelle Cooper, School Counselor at the middle school. Mark Fierro, Social Studies Teacher at the high school. Janice Herbert, Teaching Assistant at Minetto, and those folks were all 7/1. Rebecca James, School Psychologist at Fitzhugh Park. Kathleen Pearson, Counselor at the middle school. And Paula Weigelt, Elementary Teacher. Congratulations to those folks. And then we have one support staff retirement. Again, with much appreciation for his years of service as a school security officer. Mark Hondor is retiring, effective June 30th, 22. And Mark has been with us since July 1, 2005. We're really grateful for all of his years of dedicated service to our students and keeping them safe in school. So A through C, all of our retirements.
Items A through C, could I have a motion, please?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to say congratulations to everybody, and condolences to the 5th grade at Kingsford Park. Eventually, there's going to be a class disappointed not to Mrs. Conti for 6th grade, and it's this current year's 5th grade. So, condolences, but congratulations to everybody.
Very much so.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed?
Pam, did you have something else you
No,
wanted to say?
just a huge thank you to all these folks. It's a huge wealth of knowledge that's leaving the district, and it just is a timing thing, but, you know, they've all earned it, so enjoy it.
It's a rich list. We're going to miss them.
Our professional staff other appointments are items D through M as presented.
Items D through M, motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And our support staff recommendations, items N through S as presented.
Items N through S, motion, please.
I'll move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is Finance with Nancy Squires.
Items A through H as presented.
Items A through H, motion, please.
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Just like to thank all those folks for those lovely donations to our school nurses, to the KPS playground. Thank you all.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the student representative discussion.
So Zach couldn't be here today, but he did send his report, and these are the items that he wanted me to share. He shares that Mr. Lanigan, I'll read it as he wrote it. Mr. Lanigan and I previously met with Matthew Guai, reviewed student discussion and input towards our school lunch programs, and we made discussion and alterations to the lunches. For a follow-up on these changes, we hope to be able to set up an interview with him on the WBUC about how things are going and to answer any questions students may have about lunches. Second thing he writes is that spring sports are starting, which includes baseball, boys and girls lacrosse, tennis, softball, girls golf, outdoor track, and unified basketball. Be sure to come and support the Bucks when you can. And all game schedules are on the oswego.org website under athletics. The third thing he writes is that we are celebrating the countdown to graduation for seniors this week with Spirit Week events. Thank you to everyone participating and for showing off creativity. The seniors will end this exciting week with breakfast and a hypnosis show on Friday. That's everything that I have for you today. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is items from the board. Would any members have any items tonight?
Well, I do.
Yeah, I do too. Go ahead, you go first, Pam.
Well, spring's in the air, we can smell it, we can see it. You know, birds flying around, buds on the trees, flowers are poking up. We can all feel it in the temperatures and, you know, how warm the sun is when it does finally come out for us. We're getting there. A great time for spring break, to rest, relax, and refuel for the last push to the end of the school year. I always found this was an exciting time in the buildings after they get back from break. Although the seniors are already starting this week. It's just, it's a fun time. I'd like to thank everybody out there who shows up every day for our students. I'd like you to all enjoy the break. To those traveling, travel safely. Those doing a staycation, also do so safely. Come back recharged and refreshed for the best part of the year. Thank you all.
So my item is, Tom and I, 2 weeks ago, went to the Oswego County Literacy Coalition. The Oswego County School Board Association hosted the Oswego, had a focus on literacy. And we had presentations from the Oswego County Literacy Coalition, as well as a number of other organizations focused on literacy in Oswego County. And one of them was, and I'm sure people have seen if you've gone to the library, about Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. And we had a really fantastic presentation about the thousands of books that they have sent out to children in Oswego County. So we currently have 468 kids, and this is from birth through 5, participating in that. And the idea is to get books in kids' hands and get them exposed to words before they are getting into kindergarten, really. So it's free for kids to sign up. There is a cost that that the Imagination Library, it's like heavily subsidized by Dolly Parton, but there is some cost. And so if you would like to donate, you can also donate to help support getting our kids kind of on track to start school. But if you have a child from 0 through 5, they can sign up and they get a free book each month. And if you have more than one child, they get different books. So you'll really just be like accumulating a really good library. I don't know, did I miss anything, Tom?
I think that's exactly it, because I was unaware of how it actually worked, but it is, nothing could encourage more literacy in terms of parents reading to their kids, starting at as soon as they're born, reading to them. So I think it's a great program. I don't know how we could get involved. I know they're a non-for-profit, so we cannot, do anything with funding to it, but anything we can do to promote, exactly, continue the messaging and to get it out there, because it benefits us. They also have a great deal of data in terms of looking at where the kids are and who's getting the books, so we could overlay relative to our districts and see which schools may be benefiting from it, and kind of see if we could encourage in those areas where it's needed most to people to engage with it.
Go ahead. Okay. I just wanted a long overdue thank you to teachers who are asked to do letters of recommendation. And this is not just for college. It is a lot for college, but also for job opportunities and other opportunities that our graduates are moving towards. And I realize it takes a lot of extra work, but even more than that, if you've been asked to do a letter of recommendation, it means that you really connected with a student. And so I just really want to just offer my appreciation for all of those who have made that connection and who have been asked, and then additionally for the extra time that it takes to write those. They do take time, and they do mean a lot. So thank you so much.
So I guess maybe it's good I'm last, because I wanted to steal a line from the Allman Brothers, back to where it all begins. I just wanted to share that I've had many parents since Saturday talking to me about the rise in COVID cases. We are in national news as one of 17 counties in the entire country. It was 0.56%. We're better than, we're about a half percenter. But our numbers have gone up. We've had 30 positive cases, including today in the high school alone in the 7 last school days. So last 5 days of last week, 2 days this week, 30 cases. I know multiple families in both the middle school and high school who have had a single child with multiple exposure phone calls. So it's like you get a phone call one day, and the next day I get a phone call. You say, you already called me. No, this is a completely different exposure. Given their urgency of the CDC and the New York State Department of Health, which I know takes into account both the physical and mental aspects of child development in conjunction with public health, I wanted to share with the group that I have been approached with concerns that our policy right now is we'll see what happens. And given where we're at, the slope that we've been rising at, and the only thing we've heard is from the CDC and New York State Department of Health. Recently, at least since the spike has started, I wanted to bring that concern to the group because not everybody can make it here to participate and speak before a meeting. So I'm just sharing. Thank you.
I guess, thank you. I guess I would share that that's not our policy. Our policy is not, we'll see what happens. We are continuing to do a number of things, right? Number one, the district is consistently and continuing to, stay in contact with local health departments and our school physician. In fact, I talked to Dr. Morgan before I even came to this meeting this evening, and we are monitoring very closely to see what happens and working with those health officials to, if we need to change anything, to change or to adjust wherever we need. We are looking at our data very closely and making adjustments wherever necessary and needed. Whenever we have a case that comes to us, we are still doing a level of contact tracing. Though the health department is not, we are still doing that. And as we have done throughout the entire year, we're contacting parents when we get cases. We have had some parents who have shared with us, well, I thought all this was done. Well, no, we're going a little bit above and beyond than what even local health officials are doing by contact tracing. Why? Because if we find that there is an infection, we want to make sure we isolate, remove wherever necessary, right? And make sure that we keep that child and anybody else or that person, whomever, safe. We are encouraging mitigating strategies and following through with the, again, latest health guidance wherever possible, which includes making sure that children and staff mask when they've been exposed to a person who has tested positive. We encourage parents, if you have any concern around masking, you can mask, right? I'm masked. Many of our staff have been masked throughout the whole week. We do have some children who are masking, by the way. The district has also, just to be proactive, we have increased our surveillance testing efforts as of recent. It used to be just offered to people who were not vaccinated. It's offered to everyone. And part of the cases that we have found is because of our surveillance testing, right? Because it's in the environment. So we are looking for, if there's a concern, we can react and try to keep everybody as safe as possible. The district has also increased test distribution. As we receive more tests, we give them out wherever possible. Just yesterday, we had a drive-through. We have every nurse's office has more than enough tests. We've been talking, actually just yesterday, I believe it was, about trying to do a giveaway table, when the people come up to the elementary schools, because we have a lot of testing. This is pretty serious to us. And at this time, the district does not have widespread data, that says that basically we've heard some concerns that maybe kids aren't doing it because they're self-conscious or they don't want to, they want to be like pretty much everybody else. We don't know that for fact. We don't have that data right now. But what we do know is that whenever we see a case or a concern, that we are encouraging people wherever possible, right? If there's any concern, per to the guidance, we want you to kind of follow through with that. If that's you need to put on a mask, we recommend. We can't require right now based on the guidance. we are watching this whole situation very closely. You know, not just us, but I know all the school districts in the county, in the region, we're all watching it very closely. We have a meeting actually tomorrow with the CSOs, and I'm sure that this is going to be one of the things on the agenda. You know, what are you seeing? How are we seeing? We have some districts who are seeing infections, some who are not. So just keeping in mind, we learned, you know, that the data is going to change. It's going to go up, come down, go up, go down. We think some of this is a combination of two things, the BA2 variant, and also some of the recent St. Patrick Day kind of events or activities and celebrations. Maybe a combination of both is kind of what we're thinking right now. But we're watching. If we get to the point where we need to some, you know, additional changes, we will enact those changes, you know, as quickly as we can. But again, we're working with our health officials. We're monitoring very closely. And it is not just, we're going to wait to see what happens. We really, this is a lot of work that we spend a lot of time on this every day, because our goal is to ensure the health and safety of our students. We're constantly on phones. We're constantly looking at data. We're constantly trying to make sure that we keep people safe. Will people continue to get calls? You know, yes, we still have a pandemic that's going on. I would say, though, our numbers are not where they were. Have they come up the last 2 weeks a little bit? Yes. I think all in the region have. But we'll continue to work accordingly. If there are needs for change, we will enact. Okay? You want to say something, Sarah?
No, you go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to repeat what I had said last time, that I think, and I recognize that everybody is doing a lot of work. The school district is doing a lot of work. As someone who's, one of my children had COVID 2 weeks ago, and I've gotten multiple letters home as well. And so I think, like, effectively, at least one grade in every school seems like they're masking because of, but I think we make our lives much more difficult if we don't follow some simple, like, not simple, but some agreed upon parameters or metrics, to use the word that lots of people seem to really dislike. But, you know, like, we're in the red zone. And when we were in the red zone, we required masks. Now, I just got back from a conference in Nashville. No one in the South is masking. And it's not spreading as much, but I think it's because they had a much higher rate all along. Our 14-day average is up over 200%. Like, we're well above New York City. We're well above, like, most other counties, except for, you know, we're one of 17. Cayuga, I think Madison and Onondaga are right there, up there with us. But I think a mitigation strategy that works is masking, right? That stops the spread. And it seems like we should have these kind of trigger points that would move us to changing our policy. Otherwise, it's going to be constant. And this is the point that I made when we talked about it last time. Otherwise, it's going to be constantly second-guessing ourselves of when is the right time to put it back on. We're back in the red. It seems to me like that should be a good enough time to put it back on. And I think we're not going to get guidance from the governor. We're not going to get guidance from the Department of Public Health, because it's not forthcoming. Like, we don't have a strong enough public health infrastructure in this country to be able to kind of mandate those things. It's always been very kind of laissez-faire and just let them figure it out. And which means it's much more work for all of us to have to constantly figure it out.
New York State Department of Health did give guidance. They urged masking indoors,
Right.
starting now. They haven't mandated it, and
Right.
that's where this whole problem comes about. The political moral cowardice of those groups to say, we're going to urge you, we have the power to do more, but we'll urge you to put it on the local people. I put that on the higher ups. All right? It's hard doing things at local government. We are not public health experts. We've all talked about that multiple times, right? But the public health experts at the state level, and the Department of Health, and the CD level, they have spoken. And so I think, you know, that's where somebody's going to say, we don't have a metric. Well, we're just not following the metric that we've been given.
I think one thing we did decide on was that we were going to follow the guidance of our local agencies. Oswego Health and our county, well, our county health department as well. And so what I don't understand, I will say, is that, so those agencies, well, at least our county health department is, offers the numbers to the state, and that's where they're getting their red zone levels. I'm not exactly sure why they wouldn't also respond to us in a kind of a way that expresses some urgency to put masks back on, but for some reason they aren't. And we decided that those were the agencies we were going to adhere to in terms of their guidance.
They are not, they have not yet, even, and I don't want to talk too much about other counties, but Onondaga County, yesterday on the news, they encouraged, they recommended, but they did not require people in their county to wear masks. There's no school in the whole Onondaga, there's not one district in Onondaga County, or Madison, or any of those counties who have required people to wear masks. I don't know of any of the entities, like municipality, I don't know of any of them. Even some of our colleges, and I may be wrong, but I think even in SUNY Oswego, so you all, and I could be wrong, you work there, I'm not sure that they mandate masks. I know there's a note, you said an urgency that says, hey.
strongly recommending. It's a complete
But nobody's
application.
requiring. No one is requiring, so
The only
we're
one
not
is New
alone.
York City. New York City, under the age of 5, is requiring masks. So there is somebody.
So it's just, it is what it is, and I understand that it's become so much more than just a simple public health decision, but for many years, they strongly recommended people wear seatbelts, right? For many years, they strongly recommended wear your seatbelts in the back seat. We have entered the endemic phase of this pandemic, and I think it's going to be a constant struggle of watching numbers and trying to make decisions if we don't set out some guidelines for ourselves to follow. And I completely recognize that when we do, we may be the only ones, but I can guarantee you there are lots of other school districts and other entities who are probably really hopeful for someone else to be the first mover. So then they could say, well, we're not alone, right? Like we're all, because everybody checks everybody else.
I didn't think that a school district could mandate masking without the authority from higher ups.
I mean, you have some rights and things that you can do, but, there's a lot that comes with that, right? And so you have to consider the cost. And personally, our staff, our team, we're constantly monitoring. We're doing a number of things. I think, if it becomes of real concern, we'll be back here to talk. We'll be here to discuss. I want to say this differently, I'm sorry. It is always a concern. Right? I don't want any of our children or any of our staff to get sick. Right? We talk about this every day. The first place I start the day out with is with our COVID hotline folks. We go through, we see cases, who, what, where, how. The middle of the day, I'm in that area. And the end of the day, I'm there. And if I'm not there, Heidi is there checking it's constant. We are working on this. This is not something that we take lightly. It's about the health and safety of all of our staff and students. We don't want to see people hurt, harmed, or, so we're doing everything we can. Yes, and there might be some more bumps in the future, right? Keep in mind, now, in terms of red zone, on the CDC site, it says high, medium, or low transmission. It doesn't do red, yellow, or green anymore, but does that. And we have been told, when we first had this conversation a couple weeks ago, every Thursday, that will be updated, and it's based upon what you see in terms of infections in your area. So it could change. It could go up, go down, go back up. We don't know what's going to happen, but we're seeing it. It started up, then it went down, really, really down. Now it came up a little bit, and every week, that could be changing back and forth. So, I hope that this whole piece will pass, but in the interim, we're going to do everything we can to keep everybody safe. So I understand.
So, yeah, I'll end, I guess, where I ended this conversation a month ago. I'm concerned about our teachers who have to do this live streaming to these students that are having to be home or having to be quarantined. And if a classroom or a building or the district has to go virtual because we did not mask, this, in my opinion, will be a failure of what we're doing. We can't go in, there's nothing like in-person instruction. And I fear that I don't see a clear path that's leading to prevent that. So I guess, since I don't see the path is where my fear comes, and I think where some other people's fear comes from.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it. And I just also want to just add about, one other thing we agreed upon was that we were going to be responsive vis-a-vis our hospital and hospital beds and that capacity. And it doesn't appear that any of this, up and down is affecting severe cases.
That's the reason why we're high. So the reason why we're high is because it's not only the number of cases per capita, but it's also based on either the new admits per week or the number of hospital percent beds taken. Because we've had up to 14 new hospital admissions per week. That plus the fact that we're up over 400 cases. So Dr. Kelvin, you're right. They said on Thursday they'll reevaluate. Since that Thursday, we were at like 228 per capita per week. We're over 400 now because it just keeps going back up. The reason why we're red, Heather, is because the new admissions to the hospital are high enough to make us in that high. And if you actually look granular, the thing that scares me, because I'll just give away my age group, 75% of those new admits are the ages of 19 to 60. So, yeah, these are not just older people.
Are they vaccinated or unvaccinated?
It doesn't tell that. It doesn't tell that, but you know what? But you know what? And actually, that goes to something that was originally conversed at the very beginning, was somebody said at the very beginning, it was, now that we're all getting vaccinated, now that we're doing this, our student population and county population does not fit the highly vaccinated demographic. So that's
If
it.
they're smart, they'll put a mask on. That's all I can say today.
Okay. Next is executive session for the purpose of negotiations, litigation, and the performance of a particular person. Could I have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You may move to executive session.